All righty. A pleasant good Monday morning to each and every one of you. It is great to be here. And yes, we're going to explore the great outdoors a little bit today. I keep getting bummed out because everybody's telling me, Luke, Casey, good morning, fellas.
Good
Everybody's
morning.
telling me summer is over. And there's no way summer is over on August the 19th, right?
No way. No way. It's such a nice time out right now. I don't know what people are talking about, Tom. It doesn't make any sense to me. I enjoyed my weekend out sunbathing pretty much for the most part.
Yeah, I mean if you can go and jump in a swimming pool and go play golf, I know kids are going back to school. It's still summer at the end of the day. Oh
It
yeah.
is. It is. And today's as good as it gets. So I said, we're going to try this show outside. We're trying this, by the way, because as you know, young Luke is off to classes at Indiana University. They begin on Monday. So, we're trying to figure out exactly when we're going to continue dialed in with Tom Brenneman and Luke Brenneman and our producer, engineer, Casey McCollister. We're still going to come your way twice a week. Mondays and Fridays. We're just trying to figure out when because Luke's got classes. We're trying to build around that whole thing. We'll also continue to post on the Believe Network. You'll find us once we let you know, and we will let you know, I promise. He and I have got to nail this down on our drive over to Bloomington. You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. Download us anywhere. Just search Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and you're dialed in. All right, fellas, we got lots to talk about this weekend. Let's start with the Reds. I don't know exactly what to say about their team. I mean, could it have been any worse over the weekend? And the people that I feel for the most are the fans. I got to be honest with you, I'm not much of a fan anymore. I think a lot of you know that, and I think a lot of you can understand that. It's not that I have anything against them in any form or fashion. I grew up rooting for them my entire life. But things change, situations change. But I feel for the hardcore fans. The ups and downs of this team is just mind boggling. Look, we told you the Cardinals stink before they came to town last week. Nobody wants to hear that, in St. Louis especially. But they stink. But the Reds sweep them. It's a division opponent, and you get within a game of 500. Now here comes the Kansas City Royals. This was ugly. The young Royals dominated the young Reds, a 3-game sweep, outscoring Cincinnati 28-3. More bad news, and we're going to get to the Reds here in a second. Hunter Green is back on the injured list with a tender elbow, and good Lord willing, this is not serious. He's already had Tommy John surgery once. But it continues a trend with Green, Lodolo. These guys are on the IL every single year. Speaking of Lodolo, he gets clobbered yesterday, and unfortunately, that's a 3-game trend with him. And you got to be wondering what's happening. Now, I can tell you what's happening because we told you this at the beginning of the year. Lodolo did not pitch at all last year. They were going to be very careful about the innings he could pitch this year. He has boat raced that number from where they wanted him to be, and he's run out of steam. They're 6 back. They're behind 8 teams in the wild card. I'd shut Lodolo down today. The team did make an interesting move on the waiver wire. They picked up shortstop Amed Rosario. This guy's been a pretty good player for a number of teams. Arizona, the Dodgers just acquired him in a trade, and they cut him loose. Now, why would they do that? This guy with the Rays this year was batting better than 300. On the current Reds team, that'd make him look like Ted Williams. And then you come to tonight. The big question everyone is asking, will former Red star Joey Votto be in a Blue Jays uniform tonight when the Reds open a 3-game series against the Jays? More on that in a moment. We know about the Bengals. They played all backups in their weekend loss to the Bears. They'll have a very important joint practice this week with the Colts, and that's a team they're playing in their final preseason game. Starter's not going to play. But lots of roster spots are on the line, including Jackson Carman. I'd be interested to hear what the chat and what Casey and what Luke have to think about Jackson Carman, because I got to be honest with you. The easiest thing in the world is to kick this guy while he's down. And Lord knows, I'll kick some guys when they're down. I try not to, because what's the point? But this guy was a second-round pick. He's a local kid from up in Fairfield. And everybody thought he was going to be a good player, potentially a great player in this league. He has shown flashes of being a good player. And now his roster spot is very much on the bubble. He might be cut when the time roster spots have to be announced on the 27th. That's a week from tomorrow. And in tennis, we're back to the finals at the Cincinnati Open for the men and the women. The ladies, Aryna Sabalenka against American Jessica Pegula. That's at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Men's top-seeded Jannik Sinner facing American upstart Francis Tiafoe. Luke, you and I had a chance to go see that tennis over the weekend. I've said it a million times. It is by far the best event in Cincinnati. Sports, socially, doesn't make any difference. You don't even have to be a tennis fan. That is a cool setup out there in Mason.
Oh, it's unbelievable. Just the facility alone makes half of it great. But the tennis was really good this weekend. We went on Saturday, and I'm not really into tennis, but you got to respect how just good of athletes those guys are. They can go for 3.5, 4 hours. We'll see more of it as it's these deeper set matches this coming week with the U.S. Open. But it was a great event, and it's all weather dependent. It was a little shaky with the rain this weekend, but for the most part, the event just makes Cincinnati look really good, and it's just overall great for the city.
It's something you don't see, to be quite honest, at a Reds game or a Bengals game. You do get a feel for it at an FC Cincinnati game. It is a much more diverse international crowd that comes to these games. You'll hear many people speaking different languages. You can just tell by their look that they are from a different country. The food is incredible. Luke, you and I did damage to what? E&O, La Rosa's, and Skyline. But you did not do the Sky Rosa.
No, I didn't, but I hit the Cincinnati trifecta. I did dabble in graders too. So
yes, you did.
I was pretty proud of myself there. I could eat like that every single day of the week. I mean, are we just ignore the fact that you double dipped in Cholitos for the first time in your life?
I did.
On Saturday evening, what was that, 10:30? You were like, let's hit the Skyline tent before
absolutely nothing better. Casey, are you a Skyline guy around 10:30 p?
Ooh, 10:30 p. That's the perfect time for any chili desires. Me personally, I'm a Gold Star guy, or at least I think I am.
Either one is fine.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a perfect time, Tom.
Now, have you had? Luke and I were talking about this because he brought up. I remember back in the off the bench days when Elliott came on board and Jacob was around. You were the mainstay, consistent through all that thing. Have you tried a Sky Rosa?
Oh, absolutely.
All right, could you explain how you do that? Because I was trying to figure out with Luke. I've never had one. I have no interest in having one because I like them individually. How do you actually make a Sky Rosa?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple. All you do is you get a slice of La Rosa's pizza.
Okay.
I prefer pepperoni pizza, so I get the ones with pepperoni on them. You get a Skyline coney with whatever you want, onions, mustard, the whole kit and caboodle if you want. I prefer plain. And you put it in the middle of the pizza, and you fold it like a taco. And you just go to town. And it's delicious, Tom. It is fantastic. I put some hot sauce on it to give it a little extra kick. And, yeah, you can imagine how you feel an hour later. You got to go to the bathroom. So it's one of the best cuisines that you could ever ask for, to be honest with you.
I think, Anthony, I'll tell you what, Munoz in the chat has the best line. That is such a stoner thing to do. I have to agree. All right, let's get down to some sports here for a second. I want to start, fellas, with the Reds. Obviously, a brutal weekend. There's no doubt about that. Bad news on every front. Hunter Green injured. And, man, you just hope so much this isn't anything bad. we've talked about on this show many times and had Timothy Kremchek, Dr. Timothy Kremchek on this show. The last thing you want to hear in the world about a pitcher is a shoulder, because they have not advanced enough medically to repair shoulders the way they're able to repair elbows. Problem is with Hunter Green, he's already had a Tommy John. So if you go back in and have to do, and again, good Lord willing, this is not the deal. But if you had to go in and do a second one, the statistics are pretty alarming about how long guys make it through a second one before then needing a third. And I know we're jumping to conclusions here, but, the point being, Luke, right from the get-go, this is tough news for Hunter Green because this guy has become a legitimate ace, legitimate candidate for the National League Cy Young Award. And he himself has already said, I am an ace. And I got there now for the first time mentally.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no debate that Hunter Green is not an ace anymore. I mean, he's a top 3 pitcher, maybe more in the National League. This is just a dagger on every single level for Hunter Green. Personally, getting back on the injured list for Reds fans and then coming off this 3-game it wasn't even a sweep. It was just an annihilation at Great American Ballpark is what the Royals came in and did to the Reds. So all of this compounded makes it sting even worse. But I think the scarier idea is like, heck, I've personally known the Reds were out of the playoffs. I gave them the benefit of the doubt, said, hey, the chance is alive. Now that you're at 6 games, I'd shut down Lodolo. I'd sure as hell shut down Hunter Green. And I would gear up for next year because if the Reds are going to be successful in 2 years' time, next year or whenever, for the sake of this entire rebuild, it starts with your 1-2 punch left and right of Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. And those two are really the ones who have been rocky up until this season. So if it turns into something more serious in 15 days, things are just kind of getting out of hand for the Cincinnati Reds.
I mean, and we were worried about Green. I talked about Lodolo there in the monologue. All of these guys, Green included, they were going, and we warned, I'm not saying we're not patting ourselves on the back. It's logical baseball, right? They have these sort of equations about how much they want guys to pitch, young guys, as they're going from one year to the next. That's what organizations do. If a guy threw 100 innings last year, they're really not going to let him go more than 120, 125 innings this year. I brought up earlier that Green has been on the injured list every year he's been in the big leagues, which means he has never pitched a full year in the big leagues. So I don't say that in critical form. I say that in terms of what you can count on now for next year. Let's say they shut him down this year. Nothing serious, but they just decide it's not worth the risk, and they shut him down. That will then limit what you're probably going to ask him to pitch next year. Lodolo, the same deal, especially Lodolo, because he has already boat raced what they wanted him to pitch this year. Now, they'll never admit that, but they have. Abbott ran out of steam last year. He's beginning to run out of steam this year. So, I don't know if we're just going to see a whole bunch of guys from the minor leagues. Luke, would you just bring up a bunch of minor league pitchers? Is that what you're saying? Close out the year.
I don't know just yet. I don't think there's an exact right or wrong answer. I think for the most part, you do have to take a step back and give Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green their flowers because they've done more than any Reds fan necessarily could have expected coming off 2 pretty serious injuries the last couple of years. So they've had great years. I mean, if the Reds were to sweep the Royals this weekend and be within 2 games of this wild card spot with Green and Lodolo picking up wins this weekend, I know Green didn't pitch, but just in general, I think it just comes down to the idea. It's like, would it sting more if the Reds were 2 out right now or kind of phoning it in 6 out? And I'm not saying that the Reds are going to just, lay down and die, especially after what David Bell said, that they have too much to play for. Yet, you got beat like 20-3 over the weekend in runs combined in just humiliating fashion. So it stinks on every level. The guys are great pitchers. They've had great years. I think that's a great point that you brought up, saying, does this affect next year now? Because I know for a fact Reds fans are done saying, let's wait for next year. Let's revamp and get healthy, because it's never working out at this point. And if these two can't even be healthy going to the offseason and come spring training, then I don't even know where to start to think about going from that point.
It's a great point you make. And, I've kind of felt like this was a lost season when all the injuries piled up early in the year. And Steve Ross in the chat aptly points out, and he is spot on this one, Steve, thanks. The starting rotation's top 3 pitchers. That has been the best thing that has happened to the Reds this year. Without a doubt. The starting pitching has carried this team, and the bullpen at times until recently. But now with Green's injury, Lodolo ineffective, probably tired, worn out, that bright spot, Steve Ross, is taking a huge hit. I'm not going to say it's taking a huge hit yet. I think your point is well made, and certainly it's a viable argument. I think you can still lean on the fact that it has been very much a bright spot. But now we're going to have to pause that as we hit September. McLean, they keep saying, okay, he's feeling better now. He's not feeling better now. He's not playing. And if he comes up, it'll be the last 2 weeks of the year. He's not going to be an impact guy in September like everybody was talking about. He hadn't even played a minor league game yet. They're already sitting him down. I'll tell you, you look at the Royals, and this is what Reds fans look at. I mean, looking at the Royals is like looking in the mirror, because they are what the Reds are. They're a small market team trying to build up their minor league system and counting on young players to deliver. And really, I call it catching lightning in a bottle. You got about a 3 or a 4 year time frame when you're a small market team. And the Royals, the last time they had this kind of team, they won the World Series. When the Reds last had this kind of team, they lost 3 straight to the Giants at home after winning the first 2 games on the road. And the Reds had the best team in the National League that year in 2012. But they choked. But the Royals now are catching lightning in a bottle. And they are playing the way Reds fans want the Reds to play. And Casey, Luke, I think this past weekend makes it that more depressing.
Yeah, it does. It's just the Royals are worlds ahead of the Reds. I think it's easy to compare them right now just from the standpoint of Elly De La Cruz, Bobby Witt Jr.
Yeah.
The only thing the Reds necessarily have that the Royals don't have is actually a significantly better bullpen. But when you look at the Reds' rotation, you can make the argument that a lot of guys stepped up this year, and especially later on in the season, guys in the bullpen. I know Fernando Cruz took a step back from the All-Star break, and Diaz was up and down this year, but they've had some guys show up that Reds fans didn't even know was going to make the roster this year from a pitching perspective. And they really haven't had that whatsoever in the batter's box. Like, yeah, Elly De La Cruz took this huge next step, but he's a franchise player, and he's proving to be that. So you have to give Elly credit, and you got to support him, give him his flowers and whatnot. But the Royals have guys who have stepped up. Pasquantino, he's a 30-plus bomb guy. He is a legit 3-hole, 4-hole cleanup type of guy. And you pair that with a Bobby Witt, you pair that with a couple guys who have got on. Blanco, the series that he had in Cincinnati, he almost drove in double-digit runs this weekend. It just seems like the Reds really never caught too many of those streaks this year. Don't get me wrong, Jonathan India had a great month of the season, but the Royals collectively have shown up on a day-to-day basis, and that's what it takes to be 10 games over 500 in Major League Baseball. I do not care if you go into Yankee Stadium, get 3 quality starts, and beat the Yankees. I really don't. It's more about the month-per-month Are you winning more series than you are losing? And when you're winning series, are you sweeping series? And especially losing series, you have to lose 2 out of 3. You have to lose 3 out of 4. You cannot get swept, especially at this point in the season. It's unacceptable. And they got 6 innings of 3-hit baseball for a good while out of Nick Martinez to start this series, and the offense went mute. It is pathetic what they're doing in a batter's box perspective.
I just got to wonder what they're teaching at the minor league level. I really do. Sean Spurlock brings up a great point. You know, you watch the Royals, they swing the bat, man. Falling in love with analytics. You know, the Royals are putting balls in play, even balls that are out of the strike zone. And I'm not here to suggest that guys should be swinging at balls, not strikes, because that's ludicrous. But these guys put the ball in play. They put the bat on the ball. They're not standing up there looking and taking pitches the whole time they're at the plate. When they get runners on base, they make contact. They don't strike out. We saw that again yesterday with the Reds. They get runner at third, runners at second and third, 1 out. Here come the guys that are supposed to be the best hitters on the team. De La Cruz and Steer, strikeout looking, strikeout swinging, inning over, no runs. I don't know what they're teaching these guys in the minor leagues as far as what kind of style hitting they want. But whatever they're teaching, it's not working. It is not working. Tell me who's gotten better this year. Tell me who's gotten better this year. Benson has been terrible. Fraley is a shadow of the player we saw a season ago. Friedel, he gets a little bit of rope because he's been hurt. He's shown some power.
But he's still been worse when he's been on the field.
There's no doubt about it. That's exactly right.
Because he had a heck of a season last year.
He had a great year last year. He was a guy that we were sitting here on the show saying this has got to be one of your foundation pieces for the future. And now I'm watching a guy who's hitting 220. I mean, I don't know who he is. And that is the thing about a second full year in the big leagues that a lot of people talked about before the season began. The sophomore thing in baseball, for some reason, seems to be a very real thing. Now, Matt McClain has not had his sophomore season because he hasn't played this year. But Marte comes back. Yeah. Now, Ellie's been better. Steer's been okay. He's not been great, but he's driven a lot of runs. He's had some big hits. He's been okay, but he's still batting in the 220s. I mean, is that what you're going to accept now because the major league average is 240? You're going to accept guys as good offensive players that hit 230? Is that possible?
And that's been the issue with this team all season, and I love to talk about it from the media's perspective where it's like you can get sucked into Cincinnati and Reds fans can make you believe that TJ Friedel is a really good baseball player and Jonathan India is great, and I'm an India guy myself, and Spencer Steer, he has really good RBI numbers. But for the most part, these guys on any playoff baseball team are hitting 7, 8, and 9 in any order. Those can't be the guys that your fans are buying jerseys of. The Reds really only have one of those guys, and I think that the Royals guy is that good where they've gotten away with it a little bit. I mean, Bobby Witt is hitting 350 this season. He steals bags. He's defensively sound. If you have a all-world guy like that, by all means, you can probably get away with not having an insane 1-2-3 punch. But look at a team who has the last playoff spot right now, the Atlanta Braves, and stack them up against the Cincinnati Reds. You say Hunter Green, they say Chris Sale. Then you move on from there. The second you get to the batting order, they have Ozuna. They have Olsen. The Reds, I mean, maybe you can say, hey, here's Ellie, and we can't cancel out one of those. But when the Braves are actually healthy with Ozzie Albies, Harrison Center, they just have Darno's a really sound catcher at the plate. He drives in runs. I'm just saying, like, all the way down the order, all of these wild card teams, whether they show up or not, they are just more talented than the Reds. And the thing that really stung for me about this weekend, the Cincinnati Reds were odds-on favorites in every single game before the first pitch. So what I look at that, rather than Vegas made a huge mistake and somehow thought the Reds were going to beat the Royals all 3 games, was that, I mean, it's all numbers is the way they do those odds and make these lines. I guess whatever metrics Vegas uses had the Reds as a better team, whether it was the starting pitcher, whether it was the batting order, whether it was the matchup with the Royals starting pitcher. They had the Reds as a better team going into every single one of those games outside of Saturday's game, which was a pick'em, which is just a 50-50.
Yeah.
That is insane to me, how you can be favored in all 3 games and not only get beat, get manhandled.
They did. They got manhandled. And, look, part of me feels like we're wasting time talking so much about the Reds because, they're not going to the postseason. It's been disappointing. I think injuries have had a significant part of hurting this team this year. I really do. But when you start looking ahead and moving forward, you mentioned Fernando Cruz. What has happened to Fernando Cruz? Now, some would say you caught that lightning in a bottle with him. I mean, he's a guy that's been around for quite a while, and all of a sudden he's pitching great. What's the manager have to do with all of this? Been a lot more talk about that lately. Is David Bell the guy moving forward? There are a lot of people that I think, and we talked about this last week with C. Trent Rosecrans. Most people seem to have an issue with Bell not being a quote-unquote motivating type of guy. That's not his personality. And yet at the same time, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So I can't say for sure that David Bell's not lighting people up from time to time. But, Luke, there are a lot more cries for David Bell and perhaps making a change than at any time during his managerial career right now.
Yeah, and I've been on my high horse this morning knocking the Reds. I think when it comes to the David Bell situation, it gets tricky because, like you said, also, if the players aren't performing, it's going to be an age-on debate in Major League Baseball. How much of that is the manager's fault? I mean, if you're throwing Will Benson out there in a lefty-lefty matchup this weekend, I understand that that's your fault in the first place for putting him in the batter's box, but if that's all you have to work with, you got to play the cards that are given to you.
Yeah.
You can't just lay down and quit. And although it looked like that and that they did this weekend, it's one of those things where they haven't produced, they've been injured. I said on this show a long time ago and really stand by it that David Bell has been a heck of a manager to get the Reds to the point where Reds fans have even sniffed the playoffs. He took them there that shortened season and whatnot, but the last 2 years, the Cincinnati Reds, there has been a reason to watch the game all the way into mid-August, whether you're 3 games out for a playoff spot. And I think that that is the ceiling for David Bell. He brought them from a Miami Marlins level ball club to a team that is in the hunt for the playoffs. I think you need a new face around there to really catapult this team and push them into the postseason. That's my personal opinion. He's been there for too long to have this same result now. Maybe they give him one more season in next year, but talk about a nightmare if we're in mid-August on this show come 2025 and we're saying, well, Hunter Green was hurt, Matt McLean had a sophomore slump, Marte's not the player we thought he would be, and Spencer Steer's getting a little older, asking for some more money. It's just like, what is going on in Cincinnati baseball? And it's kind of the life of a small market team. You have to develop players. They have to produce. You can't just go buy your way into 40 home run guys.
Well, Everett and Rick and Caleb, they bring up some interesting points here today. Everett, we just criticized the overall approach at the plate, and Everett says, whose fault is that? That's a legitimate question. Whose fault is that? The lack of good, solid, fundamental baseball has been atrocious this year. Atrocious. Defense, base running, throwing to the wrong base. Absolutely awful fundamentals. Everybody would agree with that across the board. They've been terrible. Whose fault is that? Rick brings that up. And then lastly, Caleb, I'm going to disagree with you here. David Bell is like Marvin Lewis, never going to get him over the hump. Marvin Lewis got him to the playoffs most years. David Bell had one team that's made the playoffs, and that was in the COVID-shortened season when they had a stacked lineup and the Cy Young Award winner, and they didn't score a single run in a 2-game sweep against the Atlanta Braves in the playoffs. Now, Marvin never won a playoff game, so maybe that's what you're talking about. All right, I want to get to Votto here for a minute because this is a big deal. I think when the schedule came out and Votto signed with his hometown team, Toronto, a minor league deal, he comes up his first at-bat in spring training, and he hits a home run. He gets back in the dugout, and as he's walking back to have a seat celebrating the home run, he steps on a bat and rolls his ankle, and it was a very significant injury. He missed months of the minor league season. He's finally come back. He re-aggravated the ankle again. I think he's something like 5 for 39 and has struck out 15 times, something like 20 times, something like that so far. It's not been good. But most people thought, and, the manager, John Schneider of Toronto yesterday, when asked about it, has not ruled it out that Votto could rejoin Toronto for this series. Casey, let me ask you a question. Would you like to see Joey Votto playing against the Reds this weekend?
As a fan, no. I don't think I would. I've already made my peace, right? I've already said the goodbyes. We already did the whole kit and caboodle. Him going out there and playing just kind of throws it back into Reds fans' faces that you weren't successful with this guy. Your team's not very successful at the moment. And you also don't want to see him play bad or good in your stadium at this moment. Personally, I don't want to see him. I know that that's probably a very different opinion than many other folks, but I feel like it's only going to do harm as a fan perspective, nothing more than that, as a fan's perspective than anything else.
Yeah, but don't you think, Luke, don't you want to see, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get it. But do you want to see Votto play again after all the phenomenal seasons? One of the most legendary Reds players in the franchise history. Do you feel like I don't want to ever see him play in another team's uniform? Or do you feel like, man, I'd love to see this guy one more time, and because he's putting on his hometown team's uniform, I think it'd be a pretty cool thing to see. Well, and maybe you feel a little bit of both. Where are you on that, Luke?
I think it comes down to just being a good fan. Joey Votto consistently gave his heart and soul to the Cincinnati Reds for a decade. You want to see the guy do good. He's in the back half of his career. If he hits 3 home runs this weekend, then so be it. Don't be salty if you're a Reds fan. The guy did everything that he could for Cincinnati. At the end of the day, yeah, they didn't really make a huge playoff run in the Joey Votto era, but that's what it will be known as, is the Joey Votto era. And you're a bad Reds fan. Yeah, I'll say it. If you're not rooting for Joey Votto, or you hope he doesn't have a good final couple years or however long he stays afloat in Toronto, especially considering it's his hometown, it's a definition of like a farewell tour of at least if he can make the club. I honestly doubt he's there. Would it just be out of like being nice to Joey Votto to call him up? Because it doesn't sound like he's playing Major League Baseball caliber ball right
he's
now.
Not.
And the Blue Jays are completely out of the playoffs, so if they do that, good for them. I'm not sure how many people will be watching from the respective cities and whatnot, but hopefully Joey Votto hits one to that right field porch, and we can all see the same thing we saw the last couple of years.
Yeah, I really like the way the Blue Jays people have been so open and honest about this whole thing. And I say people, their manager, and especially their general manager. He is asked about this regularly. It's become more of a focal point now with the Reds coming to town. But, they just lay it all out there on the line. They're not trying to BS anybody. They're like, look, we'd love to have Votto come up here and play well. But Votto has spoken himself about how he is not playing well enough to be a major league player. But the general manager has also gone on to say, we think that his influence around our young team would be very good. They're not trying to sell tickets. They have the third highest attendance in the American League. Toronto is averaging 34,000 fans a game. So, but take it to the bank. If they did bring up Votto, I don't know what the old Sky Dome seats, maybe it's 45, 50,000. I don't know, since they've rearranged it exclusively for baseball. You would sell it out 3 games in a row. If I'm them, I'm bringing them up. And why not? Your team's done, like you said, Luke. I bring him up. He's playing against his former team. I think sometimes you just do things because it's a good thing. And I think this would be a good thing for everybody involved. Now, some might say maybe not so much for Votto if he's not major league ready and he went out there and looked bad. Who's going to remember it if you're a Reds fan? If you're a Blue Jays fan, you get to see the best player in the history of your country, the best all-time player who hails from Canada, gets to play in his hometown in Canada. And he's playing against fans that will be watching from the only team he has ever called home. This is a must. The Blue Jays must bring him up. Now, some people out there immediately say, what about Larry Walker? Larry Walker was a more talented player than Votto. He just had more tools, and he's a Hall of Famer. But Votto's the best player that's come out of there. I hope he plays. I hope he plays well, and I hope we see him. All right, real quick to the Bengals. Luke, I don't feel like there are a whole lot of thoughts from the weekend because none of the starters played. And I guess it was sort of an up and down day for the starters in that practice against Chicago. A couple guys got hurt. And now you're trying to get down to the final roster spots, man. I think a lot of us lose sight that this is the future and the hopes and the dreams for so many of these young men to try and make an NFL team.
Yeah, that's the battle of the NFL not having a farm system like Major League Baseball where you can still kind of stay afloat until you do catch your lightning in the bottle or make a debut. You either make the team or you don't. You either travel with the team or you don't. You're a practice squad guy and just trying to hang on. I think that the biggest thing to talk about right now is some of those negatives. Obviously, they get blown out, but I was more worried about what happened in that joint practice. You lose a running back for the season in Chris Evans. Joe Burrow reportedly throwing interceptions all over the place. It just sounds like not a lot is going the Bengals' way for a team that's one of the Super Bowl favorites. I feel like every time we come on this show Monday and Friday, whether it's an issue with Jamar Chase and his contract or an injury or something with the offensive line now being good to start and starting a rookie and switching Dax Hill's position, it's just kind of a jumble right now for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you would think for a team chasing the Lombardi Trophy, you would have your act together by week 2 of the preseason, because if there's a time to get it together, it's right now. Let's go, Cincinnati. You haven't started well the last 2 seasons. This is your year. This is your final year with T. Higgins as a wide receiver paired with Burrow and Chase. And I know that none of those guys have anything to do with what happened in this joint practice and in the game. I don't look into the loss whatsoever in Chicago outside of, hey, maybe the Bears are going to be able to play a little bit. Caleb Williams looked amazing on those first couple of series, but outside of that, I'm not going to read into it too much, but when there is stuff to actually read about, I think that's just a little bit for a concern in the preseason.
Well, the defense did look very good, the backup guys. I mean, they held the first 3 drives to 3 and out. Williams had his moments. He can run around, but I just can't put a whole lot of stock in preseason games and preseason practices. I mean, I want to, but I just can't. The Chase thing now is becoming an issue for me. It's becoming a big issue. Casey, This guy's got to get on the field. And whether they get the contract extension done this week, if they do, God bless them all. If they don't, he's got to get back on the field, because this is, like Luke just said, this is an all-go season for this team. And the fans will turn against him if he is not ready to play week 1.
Oh, absolutely. I don't disagree with you whatsoever. Reportedly from Adam Schefter, he talked to Chad Johnson, Ocho Cinco, and he had a few things to say about the situation, mainly just saying that he anticipates there being a deal done relatively soon, because this kind of fits in with that same timeline with Jesse Bates, and that he potentially thinks that Jamar Chase will sit out games into the regular season if it's not done, which is very concerning. Very, very concerning. Yep. Whether or not he's a true insider or not, we can debate that. But Jamar Chase not being out there is detrimental to the offense. It's not going at full steam ahead. Like, it's not operating at its peak levels right now. And we won't have that until he gets back on the field. And, you know, you're losing out on this valuable time to get right with Joe Burrow. And it doesn't take long for Jamar. So I'm not overly panicking right now, but I am getting concerned. It's starting to get down to the wire. And this team, man, they don't like to budge. Mike Brown doesn't like to budge. Yep. And if it starts getting into the regular season, it's not a good look for this team.
I mean, Lukey's got to get back, right?
Yeah, I'll say this before we head into off the bench. It's something that I think people are overlooking from a Jamar selfish perspective. Yes, he can play this year. Yes, he doesn't need a new deal yet. But it sounds like to me Jamar Chase has voiced to the Cincinnati he wants a new deal before this season kicks off.
Yeah.
Therefore, the ball is in the Bengals' court at that point to say, do we want to risk one of the best chances that we're going to have and the best chance we've had yet outside of the fact that we made the Super Bowl and lost it to make a run at it? Or are we going to try and save $25 million this year and really just hope that Jamar's a good guy and wants to play with Joe for the sake of Cincinnati and maybe get paid next year? Because it sounds like to me Jamar and his team has come to the Bengals and said, hey, I'm going to get paid before the season, or I'm going to sit out, because that's what's happening right now. I'm not saying he's going to sit out the whole year, but at this point, I would just sign, seal, deliver whatever he wants to him right now. He's your franchise guy. I said this last week. Get Jamar Chase on the field. The fan base will skyrocket from there. It'll give us a ton of momentum heading into the season. And there we don't. The last thing we need is a contract issue for a guy that's going to get signed regardless. I know you're going to lose $25 million on this first year of the deal, and there's perfect worlds that people have come on this show and told us can happen from a money standpoint, but he wants to be paid and he should be paid. So if I'm the Bengals, I'm paying him and getting your number one receiver on the field right now.
All right. Well, I mean, look, this is an age-old problem. It happens to every single team out there. You just laid it out there, both of you guys. I mean, Mike Brown, Katie Brown, Blackburn, Troy Blackburn, all of them, they got a decision to make. What are they going to do? And Jamar has a decision to make. Am I going to play or sit out and miss game checks? These guys aren't getting paid right now. They get paid when the season starts. So he hasn't missed a paycheck yet. Now, he's not making a ton of money. He's making a couple $1 million tops. But, you play that out over 18 weeks of a season, you're talking about $60,000 paycheck.
Yeah, but that's nothing compared to what they'll be.
Well, there's no doubt about that. But for right now, he's not been a guy that's used to making $10, $15, $20 million a year. He's used to making $1 million a year, and probably spent like a guy, I'm guessing, that knew he was going to make more than $1 million a year very soon. So that $62,000 shows up in a hurry. It hurts, but we'll see. We'll see. Before we get out of here, happy birthday to my former broadcast partner and the greatest Bengal who's ever put on the orange and black. A happy birthday to my main man, Anthony Munoz, today. I hope, Anthony, you have a great day. Good Lord willing, you're with your family, your wife, Dee Dee, and the whole gang. And I just hope it's the best day ever. Fellas, it's been asked real quick, Luke. That is not your dorm room. Your dorm room doesn't have some really nice painting and a nice lamp in the back. You're not there yet. You don't get there until Thursday.
Well, I'll do my first show from the dorm on Monday, so a week from today, because we have to go to, or not have to, we get to go to my cousin, your nephew's wedding over the weekend. So we'll still do the show Friday from the wedding, and then we'll be spread out come Monday. But I thought this was a good test run, and thank you to everyone for bearing with us for the first part of this.
Absolutely. Casey, you weave your magic yet again, so we thank you so much for all your hard work and successful hard work.
Well, thank you, guys. Appreciate you all coming on.
All right, buddy. All right, so for Luke and Casey and me, we thank you for being with us. Thank you to everybody in the chat, and we'll be back with you on Friday. College football kicking off this coming weekend. We'll talk a lot about that on Friday. So, for all of us on Dialed In, have a great day. It's time for Off the Bench. Here we go, right now.
The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great. Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that. If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
I thought we'd all be in great moods coming into today is why we're all in bad moods. So shout out and thank you, Cincinnati Reds baseball. We really appreciate it. You are our rock, and that's what we're going to open up with here today. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. Shout out to Tom and Luke Brenneman getting us started this morning with a little dialed-in remote action. They did the show remotely, of course, but we got the full gang here in studio, off and rolling here on a Monday. Happy Monday, Casey. Good morning. Your second show of the day.
Yeah, my second show of the day. I think I should be all warmed up, ready to go. Get the kinks all ironed out again.
You're always talking kinky stuff, dude. Every single time.
Every day.
I mean, he loves talking kinky stuff every time. But
he
yes,
in two kitten caboodles during time.
Two.
Not one
You're a kitten caboodle guy, huh?
Two kitten caboodles.
I love kitten caboodle. I don't know why. That's one of my favorite sayings. But yeah, I use it all the time apparently.
I caught the one. Was there two?
There was two.
Nice.
What's the definition of it?
Yeah, what like?
It's when you have the kitten and also the caboodle.
It's awesome. It's one of those things you hear
That's
and it
what I
makes
thought.
sense.
Of course.
But
The
then when
kit.
people ask you what it means, you have no clue what it means.
No, I have no idea what it means.
You know, the whole kit and caboodle. Oh, okay. What's that mean? Oh, I don't know.
No clue.
Hopefully
idea.
it's not something that would be.
I'm sure we could
Bad.
find an alternate definition that'll be bad for you.
Yeah,
I'm
let me look
gonna,
at it.
I'm gonna look it up just in case.
We'll dig.
Oh, kinky kit and caboodle talk to get things going here today. But Elliot, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm looking up this definition right now. Hold on. So you asked me that. A large collection of things,
Nice.
or quote, the whole lot. Everything but the kitchen sink. How about that, Casey?
Yeah, how about that?
The whole kit and caboodle. I like it.
Yeah, the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah, I'm fine. What a special day.
What a special day,
Yeah,
huh?
what a beautiful day to be alive.
Elliot, look out. Behind you.
Oh,
Oh, Jesus. He snuck
How'd he
up.
get
Oh,
there?
my gosh.
how'd he get there?
Man.
Yeah. So I listen. We talked about it last week. We were talking about the Reds. Yada yada yada. This is what I expected. This is who they are. And this is who they'll always be. So whenever every single thing, I tweeted it yesterday. Every single good thing they've ever done or ever will do will be matched by something terrible at equal length. And it'll go on forever. They can win. I swear to God, they can win 25 games in a row. They will lose 25 in a row immediately after it, and that's the problem. I don't know if they're ever going to be good. I don't know if they're ever going to be consistent enough to win games or go on long stretches like the Padres. The Padres just won 8 straight series, and then you have the Reds who don't win baseball games ever. It was humiliating, terrible series. I'm going to say it's the end of the year. I'm going to say it's the end of the season, even though there's a month and a half left, month and 2 weeks left. I just know who they are at this point, and I think if you don't know who they are, I think you take a good look at what just happened. Sweep, get swept. Sweep, get swept. It's just the story of the season.
Yeah, it took not getting swept by the Royals to keep the season on track. And
Yep.
Look what happened. So, yeah, I mean, they had a chance at home against a playoff team to prove that they had turned a corner and were ready to compete a little bit this year, and instead they tucked their tail and got dominated for 3 games at their own ballpark. So, yeah, and our best pitchers on the IL. So
Oh, I didn't even mention that.
it was a really, really fun weekend. Yeah. I checked my phone, and the Reds are down 2 touchdowns, and Hunter Green's out for 15 days.
Oh, he's trying to use increments of grand slams. Oh, we're only 3 grand slams.
triple slam range.
Yeah,
right.
triple slam.
If you're in triple slam range, you've got a chance.
It's just
but
a
once
bloop
you get
a
out,
blast,
once you
3
get
more
out,
bloops and 2 more blasts.
yeah. What is it?
3 bloops a blast, 2 more bloops a blast, 3 bloops a blast.
Couple
That's
walks.
all. That's all it is.
See, that's all it is.
That's all it is. But once you get down 13-0, then it was over because I can't hope to come back from quadruple slam range.
And, when you have those games where you get down big like that, you're going to have that. It is a long season. Some nights it's not going to be your night. But to have 3 straight nights like that or 3 straight outings like that, that's the difficult part. That's the thing that's hard to defend. And I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about how this team has battled through adversity all season. I think it's very timely. Last week we talked about, of course, Barry Larkin with his comments that came out. And, you could talk about whether or not the angle was to get the managerial job. Who was he targeting? Was it telling the front office to be more aggressive? Was he calling out a little bit of the players, like saying that they need to have expectations that are beyond just being a 500 team? And by the way, I would kill for a 500 team. I mean, we got super excited. What a bunch of losers we are. We lost our minds because they got within a game of 500, and we thought we were going to be talking about a parade here on a Monday.
Yep.
But here's the problem I have with all of this is I no longer want to hear about, well, they've been without Matt McClain. TJ Friedel's been in and out all season. The bottom line is we can't sit here. We're hypocrites if we buy in when they go on these little mini runs. They go on these mini runs because they have the weapons to go on these mini runs to be good. They're good enough to sweep the Cardinals and dominate a divisional opponent. They're good enough to be a 500 team. They're good enough to be above 500. They're good enough to compete for a playoff spot. But what we can't do is we let them off the hook. Every time we do this show, any show in the state of Ohio, any show that covers the Cincinnati Reds, every time we let them off the hook when we come back after a tough weekend like we just experienced and say, well, if TJ Friedel's been in and out of the lineup, and Matt McClain, by golly, he's been out all season, and injuries. At some point, the guys that were good enough to get you to the point where you had expectations are the guys that you have to hold accountable to a certain extent for when they don't show up. And there's a lot of guys that didn't show up this past weekend. This past weekend was not a result of no Matt McClain. This past weekend was not a result of TJ Friedel being in and out of the lineup, because I've seen the difference this team, how different they look when TJ Friedel's in the lineup. And by the way, was he in the lineup? Oh, yeah, 1 for 10. 6 strikeouts over the weekend. What about our superstar, Ellie De La Cruz? And by the way, I'm going to put out this disclaimer now. I love Ellie. I'm obsessed with Ellie De La Cruz. You are allowed to be critical of your stars. If we're going to sit here and talk about the fact that he is in the MVP conversation, not the favorite, but if he is in the MVP conversation and we could talk about him in that light, we could be critical when he doesn't show up in key moments of series and games and key moments of a long season. This is it. It comes down to this final week and month and some change. Your star players have to show up. All right? Like, I would be critical of Shohei Ohtani if his team was in a playoff race and he disappeared for an entire series. That's what Ellie did. What we got for Ellie this past week? Oh, yeah, 1 for 11. He did draw a walk. He struck out 3 times. No, I mean, his biggest highlight of the weekend was, of course, the called strike 3 with the bases loaded. I know it was a called strike 3 out of the zone, but I think 50-plus times he's been called for strikeouts out of the zone this year. I'm not blaming Ellie. I'm not blaming him on this, but where was he? Where was Spencer Steer? Oh, yeah, 1 for 9, 3 strikeouts. That's a problem. Okay, so if we're going to sit here and say this isn't a Matt McClain issue. Matt McClain could have had 3 hits over the weekend. Okay, so maybe they don't get outscored 28-3. Maybe it's 28-6. Still a bad weekend. This team has problems, and it's not because of what they don't have. It's because the guys that they do have aren't consistently showing up when they're supposed to. And let's be clear. The Reds could have lost this series at being outscored 12-3, and it would have been like, my gosh, I can't believe they got swept. Man, they had opportunities. They didn't have an opportunity in any of these. Nick Martinez shows up, gets whacked, right? You look at Nick Lodolo, what the hell? Last week we're talking about, man, I can't believe it. This is a team that might actually have a homegrown full 5-man rotation that could dominate baseball. Didn't look like it over the weekend. Nick Lodolo looked horrible. And it's okay to say that. I like Nick Lodolo. I'm pulling for him. I want him to be a part of the rotation moving forward. I'm just saying he stunk. Martinez stunk. All right, Andrew Abbott stinks. He stunk over the weekend. I love Andrew Abbott, but he stunk. Ellie stunk over the weekend. Spencer Steer, he was horrible. TJ Friedel, not good. Shout out to Jonathan India, Tyler Stevenson. There was no situational hits that they had that made you want, feel like the Reds had a chance at winning this past weekend. They at least got a couple hits and got on base a few times. Were able to knock in some runs here and there. Oh, but 3 runs in 3 games. So I say and by the way, last point before I hand it off to you guys. The bottom line is I'm not going to sit here and use the inconsistencies based on injuries as an excuse. The bottom line is this team had expectations to compete for the division coming in. This team had expectations to be a competitive ball club this year. Look, we could talk about Vegas's number 4 and their win-loss at 80 and all this stuff. Well, they're not even living up to the Vegas I was disappointed in the Vegas expectation for the Reds. They're not even living up to that right now. So at the end of the day, I look at this and I say the Cincinnati Reds over this weekend embarrassed themselves. They embarrassed me. They embarrassed you. They embarrassed us. They embarrassed everybody that is pulling for this team. We are not doing this team any favors by continuing to make excuses. I don't want to hear about injuries. I don't want to hear about youth. I don't want to hear about anything. If we could put Ellie in an MVP conversation, we could put him in the you stunk conversation this past weekend. It's okay to do that. We're still fans. I don't like when we coddle these guys. The pitching was atrocious. The strength of this team, the whole reason that this team has been able to overcome the offensive deficiencies throughout the year is because they're a very, very good pitching team. 28 runs in 3 games. starters, relievers, closer. It was a joint sucking effort over the weekend. And I just, if it wasn't for Post Malone's new kick-ass country album, I'd be in a much worse mood driving 45 minutes into work today, Elliot.
Yeah. Was it F1 Trillion?
Oh, it's a great album. Dude.
I
I don't think there's one bad song on there.
One.
Did he really?
Yeah, it's like 35 songs.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Are you
awesome.
serious? I have to listen to it.
Not one bad song, by the way.
I have to go back and listen to it. I have like 3 of those songs. Anyway, this was the first series of the year where the team openly quit. They stopped trying. There was a clear lack of effort. That second game when you were down 700-0, and Ellie De La Cruz just duffs 2 routine ground balls. One goes through his legs, one goes under his glove, can't field it. Back-to-back errors, looks terrible. You have good pitching, Tony Santillan, Sam Moll, guys who've been good all year long, or at least since they've been brought up or called up. They looked horrible. Nobody looked good. And it started with that Friday night game where David Bell openly, he quit. And he quit. And the rest of the guys, I guess, followed his lead, and they quit the entire series. It's terrible. There's no other way to spin it. And I agree with Kinner. At some point, the injury excuse and their young excuse, that's got to stop. I'm going to give them a pass for this year, just because I think from the get-go offensively, we weren't a professional team. I mean, we just didn't have it. When you're begging for Mike Ford to play for you, it's not going to be a productive year offensively. And they haven't been the world's worst team. It's just, as the word I'm going to continue to use all show, is inconsistent. They're not consistent enough. And no matter what they do, I don't know when I'm supposed to expect change. Because these guys, the roster that we have, I don't think can make the postseason. I don't think so. I don't think if they ran it back next year, I don't think Matt McClain is the difference. I don't think Matt McClain gets this team to a postseason. I think they need help, and that's the responsibility of the front office.
Yeah.
Pitching wise, they've been great. You've said it. Bullpen's been awesome for the most part. Shout out to Fernando. And then you have starting pitching, who's been great. But again, starting pitchers, Nick Lodolo. I don't know what I have in Nick Lodolo. I want to be on Nick Lodolo's side, but it's every year. Every year he goes on the IL. Every year he comes back from the IL and he looks terrible. He's been terrible for a month. Horrible. This is his second 8 earned run performance in 4 games. He's not going 6 innings. The past, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? 9 starts. He's gone 6 innings 3 times in that. Ton of earned runs. A lot of pitches. A lot of wild pitches. So, yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. I think it shined a light on what this team is and who this team is. And unfortunately, you just have to sit here and hope that at some point they figure out consistency. My only concern is they haven't done it in a year and a half, 2 years. I'd argue a year and a half, because the Reds weren't the Reds until Ellie and Matt and everybody else was brought up last season. But it's disappointing. You come into a series against the Royals, who I'm going to be honest, weren't very good on the road, outside of playing the White Sox and teams that are bad. They come in here and they look like World Series contenders. Starting pitching, bullpen, everybody. They shut us down completely. Their offense looked incredible. Bobby Witt's hitting 900-foot home runs with a pencil bat. So, I mean, there's no other way to spin it other than it's disappointing. I have low expectations for the Reds moving forward. I don't think they'll win 68 games. They're going to win 75, something like that game, 78 games. They might even make another push. They might start this series against Toronto. They might sweep them. Sweep the next series too. And they go on a 9-game little winning streak. But here's the thing. When they do that, I urge caution, because they're going to lose it back right away. It's happened for a year and a half. When you sweep the Yankees and then get swept by the Tigers, you sweep the Cardinals, get swept by the Royals. You can only flip-flop, snip-snap too many times, and I'm out of it.
It really takes a toll.
It takes a toll. I didn't watch. I watched that. So I watched the Friday game, and I saw that disaster. And then we can talk about that in the next segment if you want, because David Bell, again, taking a lot of heat. But Saturday was the first time in a long time I've seen my baseball team openly and almost embarrassingly quit. They threw their hands up and said, nobody wants to be here right now. We're going home. And that's tough at home in front of your home fans.
Yeah, I don't think we're 28-3 worse than the Royals, but I really just don't think this team's very good.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'm going to stop being let down by a team that I just don't think's very good.
28-3. Like I said, they could have, lost. They could have got swept. Their hitting could have disappeared, and their pitching still could have been solid, and they could have lost, 12-3 on the season or on the series as a whole. Still disappointed. We're still going to come in here angry. We're still going to be saying, you got us again. But this is 28-3 is a whole other level of from top to bottom. There was no one that showed up this past weekend, and you're at home. I mean, I'd be just as angry if it was on the road, but you had everything in your favor to not look like that you had momentum. And like I heard, I see people on social media and everything saying, well, maybe the Hunter Green news really kind of shocked the clubhouse. Well, you know what? These are grown men. You're professional athletes. You could still be upset about that, but also where's that mentality of, all right, now next man up. Here's the thing about it is we're going to talk some Bengals coming up. I'm not a Bengals fan, as you guys know, but I very well understand why the Bengals are such a cool, feel-good story. This is a team that come in, what makes them fun to watch, it's their confidence, it's their enthusiasm, it's their never-give-up attitude. I mean, a quarterback gets sacked 70 times in a season, bad offensive line, one of the worst in history of the NFL, and leads them to a Super Bowl appearance. Joe Burrow had every reason not to succeed. Had every reason. The Bengals had every reason not to succeed. We talk about all the reasons they won't succeed, and when they're healthy, they come out and they fight. They lose Joe Burrow. They lose, they're without Jamar for some games, T for some games last year. Their defense, one of the worst in football. They went 9-8. They find reasons to win. They don't sit there, the team, the media, as much as it drives me nuts, they don't sit there and make stupid-ass excuses about, well, we couldn't compete this year because of blank. No, they go out there and they overcome stuff. That's why Cincinnati, that's why the Bengals are such a fun story in football, and that's even coming from me who's trying to find reasons not to be entertained by them, right? Then you have the Cincinnati Reds who make excuse after excuse after excuse after excuse, and there is no fight, there is no passion, there's no excitement. Where's that team from June of 23 that was the most exciting team in all of baseball? Where is that? Going head-to-head with the best team in baseball at the time of the Atlanta Braves and making it look like they were just a piece or two away from competing with them. It ticks me off. It really, really does. And I'm over it. I'm not over it. They can go sweep the next series, and I'll buy back in like the idiot that I am. But you know what? That's what I'm here for. It is what it is at this point. But the Reds, I don't want to hear no more excuses. No more injuries, no more youth, no nothing. I don't want to hear from David Bell that, that we've been here before. That's the problem, David. That's the problem, Mr. Bell. That's the problem, David Bell. You've been here quite a lot. We don't want to. We don't care. And to sit there and say that's a good thing. Oh, we've been here a lot. Well, there's been no evidence that you being here leads to anything positive. That's why we're all concerned. That's why we're quitting and giving up. Nonetheless. All right, we're going to talk a little Cincinnati Reds baseball some more from the perspective of Charlie Goldsmith with the Cincinnati Enquirer, who covers not just the Reds but your Cincinnati Bengals. We'll also talk about the Bengals' second preseason game. I don't care about the final score, but they lose to the Bears over the weekend, but had a good chance to see what the Bengals defense, even with a lot of non-starters out there, go up against the first team offense for the Chicago Bears. There's a lot to take away from there. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up. Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer. Sorry.
All good.
All right, welcome back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Charlie Goldsmith joins us coming up here in about 5 minutes. But we opened up instant reaction to the Cincinnati Reds and that embarrassing performance over the weekend, being outscored 28-3 in a sweeping loss against the Kansas City Royals. They now turn their attention towards the Toronto Blue Jays, and we'll see how they turn things around or effort to. One thing we talked about, we will get to in a moment. They made a big addition off waivers, which was something we should be more excited about, but I feel like it's going to take some time to get excited about that. We'll get to that coming up in a moment. But the Bengals over the weekend, second preseason game, not as much flair and excitement about the second week of preseason. You get that first week, it's that first taste of football after all the draft talk, all the free agency talk. We finally get to see it out on the field. Then after that, we're like, yeah, get us to week 1. But preseason week 2, Chicago Bears, Cincinnati Bengals. They had that joint practice, Jacob. Obviously, no starters, but a lot of position battles up for grabs as well. Any key takeaways from the Bengals-Bears over the weekend?
No starters for the Bengals, but the Bears did play their starters. Their starting offense played for, I believe, the entire first quarter, and the Bengals defense shut them down. The backup Bengals defense really had a great showing against the starting Bears offense. Caleb had a couple really great plays in the backfield, avoiding the rush and everything, but there was consistent pressure from the backup D-line, which included a sack from rookie Chris Jenkins. There was a little bit of worry about him in the first game against the Buccaneers just because of the way he was shown a little bit of an inability to fit runs and different things in the double teams. But against a more pass-heavy offense, he really shined, which is the role that he's going to be asked to play with this Bengals team. So I think we really threw him to the fire there in week 1, but he bounced back a lot this week. The other main takeaway on defense is the same takeaway from week 1. John Ahmedov is going to make this team. That linebacker led the team in tackles again. He was third in snap count on the defense. He played great. He continues to get a lot of reps. I think he's really carving out a spot for himself on this team. But continuing to talk about rookies on the offensive side of the ball, Matt Lee played basically the entire game at the center position, didn't allow a single sack, didn't allow a pressure. He really looks like a great player at that 7th-round slot out of Miami. Probably the successor for Ted Karras after that new extension he signed. He'll be at the center this year and next, and then probably slide into Matt Lee if he continues to show what he's shown so far. So really great things from the Bengals. Josh Newton continued to show good signs as the outside corner. I'd expect him to throw his hat in the ring a little bit louder for that cornerback 2 role as we get closer to week 1. But other than that, more of the same from the Bengals. A lot of the late round guys trying to work in there. The really upsetting thing so far is, I guess you could say it's good or bad, but there hasn't been really a standout tight end in a positive or a negative way. So we might just have a bunch of meh tight ends, which is back to where we've been for what seems like a long time. But I know Casey had some stuff he wanted to bring up about the Bengals as well. So if there's anything I missed, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, the only things that I noticed that you didn't touch on were DJ Turner and Dax Hill both playing very limited amount of snaps. It felt like they had came to the decision that they were both good enough, like that they had seen enough that they can both come out, which is strange because they're both fighting for similar starting roles on the team. So it kind of leaves you to wonder what the plan is there, I guess. I also thought that Fig Newton, he looked pretty good. I know he gave up that big penalty, and I know that he gave up that big play to Adunze down the sideline, but when you're having to defend a guy for more than 5 seconds, it's really hard to do so in the NFL. So I don't blame him too much for that. I liked a lot what I saw from John Meta too. I think he's going to be finding his place somewhere, stashed away on this team somewhere. I also agree with you about the tight ends. It's not really one that stands out, but one good thing about it is that it feels like all of them can do everything, at least the ones that we brought in, Eric All and McLaughlin. So maybe there's still room for improvement and growth there. Really loved what I saw from the D-line. Cedric Johnson had a couple really good plays as well. Nothing came up on the stat sheet, but he was getting pressure. He was causing a lot of that disruption as well. Overall, very pleased with the defense. Offensively, though, and special teams, over 120 yards in penalties, over 10 penalties in that game. Yeah, was not good to see. And also, Jermaine Burton came up limp on a kick return, I believe. I can't remember if it was the pass that he caught or the kick return. We'll see if that ends up being anything, but nothing reported. Yeah, I'm just disappointed in that aspect of things, but offensive line looked great. Think they still need to get depth at the running back position. And receiver-wise, we just didn't see a lot of Burton either, which is
just one catch on his lone target for 19 yards. But like you said, he did return kicks for the first time in his career. He said he didn't return kicks in high school or college, and then he was returning them in the NFL, so that's cool. 2 punts and 2 returns on kickoffs. I think he did a fairly good job. 1 punt he didn't catch, and he kind of misplayed it in the air, which is expected for a guy returning kicks for the first time. So he'll get his legs under him there, and then maybe that can be another way to get the ball in his hands. But Evan McPherson ended the first half with a 54-yard field goal, and that was right on the heels of him signing a record extension with the Bengals. That's the big news from this weekend. Is Evan McPherson signed a 3-year, $16.5 million contract with the Bengals, $10 million in money in that first year, which is a record for kickers. So really good to have him locked up. The Bengals continue to give money to the positions of the players that they draft that prove they get that prove they deserve the money at the top of their position group. So, locking up McPherson in a timely manner like this just gives me more confidence that they're going to do the same with Jamar.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Yeah, they got the deal done with McPherson. I thought they didn't do negotiations once the season got here. I thought that's only for the off season. I thought that was weird, but no, they that is. I mean, look, especially because they drafted him too, but we know how important a kicker can be. No doubt about it. All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, talking all things Reds and Bengals coming out of the weekend. Bengals will wrap up their second preseason game. One more to go. We're just a couple weeks away from the kickoff to the 2024 NFL season, of course. And then the Cincinnati Reds, who, well, their season might have ended over the weekend, just based on the vibes and feels and reactions on social media. To talk more Reds and Bengals, joining us now, of course, Charlie Goldsmith, the Cincinnati Enquirer. Awesome enough to give us some time. Charlie, we appreciate your time. Good morning. Welcome.
How you doing?
Good. Hey, I appreciate you doing this, jumping on with us right off the bat. We were just talking Cincinnati Bengals, so let's pick up there. Preseason always a tough thing, because you want to get excited about it. We get excited for week one. You get a chance to see some of the starters. Not as much excitement, not a lot of starters, no starters pretty much in week two. Just a generic question tossing out to you right off the bat. Your initial just takeaways. What was your biggest takeaway, biggest talking point coming out of preseason game 2 for the Bengals?
Yeah, I think kind of the story of the season almost, especially on the defensive side of the ball, is how their draft strategy from the last few years panned out. And that strategy has been, as they invest in offense with money, they're investing through draft capital in the defense. A lot of these guys we just haven't seen get a lot of opportunities in specific roles to see where these guys stack up and to see, a second-team defense chock full of young guys the Bengals are just banking on and counting on and depending on to really shape or to really level up that unit this season. To see those guys go out and do what they did against Caleb Williams for basically whenever that second-team defense or second/third-team defense was in the game, to me that was really encouraging. To me, so much of the season for the Bengals is going to be about Osai, Murphy, Jenkins, Jackson when he's back, Dax Hill, who's in a new role. Obviously, Hill and DJ Turner didn't get too much opportunities, but kind of shut it down when they were on the field. Jordan Battle, even going down to Amuma Jongmeta. Like, the Bengals have a second wave on their defense that I like. I like this unit more than what they've had with previous iterations of their second-team defense. Again, it was just a preseason game, but it was a rare opportunity to see these guys against starters. It was pretty much as sound as they could hope for.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up to that was, of course, it's tough for fans to take a lot away from a preseason game, but the fact that we did see the backups for the Bengals actually really give a lot of resistance towards the starters for the Chicago Bears, that has to be a good sign, of course, for a rebound year for Anarumo's defense, who took a hit a little bit last year. I know things changed with some hits on the offensive side of the ball that changed how they attacked things, but yeah, you're right. Feeling really good about how they looked against the starters for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I mean, look at two guys, too, like, Chris Jenkins, very welcome to the NFL moments in his first preseason game. Just played a lot cleaner, more explosive football in game 2. Josh Newton was a guy who we've seen him get beat on plays like that slant in practice, then to see a correction and an improvement there. Newton's a guy, he'll be talked about a lot after this game. For a 5th-round pick, I think it's a very great place to be right now, a guy who I see as a situational backup corner. Against very specific styles of matchups, receivers who you want to challenge aggressively at the line of scrimmage and don't necessarily have that burning speed to beat you down the field. Like, Josh Newton is ready to play specific plays on third downs against that type of guy. So, like, you're seeing roles start to shape out for the second wave of this Bengals defense. The starters are set. Let's kind of have what I call platoon players who can do one or two things at a high level right now. That, ultimately, for Lou Anarumo's mad science, whatever you want to call it, that's what makes a defense harder to predict.
On the offensive side of the ball, Jermaine Burton kind of pulled up limping at the end of that game on Sunday after just one target, one catch, and he did return kicks for the first time in his career. Do you think we could, A, see him back on the field pretty quickly after that injury? There wasn't a whole lot of reports about it, but hopefully he's fine. And then, B, do you think he's going to throw his hat in the ring for the return game?
Yeah, I don't have an update on the injury yet. The return game to me was fascinating. So kind of something I was saying last week when, Burton was very, very bottom of the depth chart in the first game is if Burton's going to be active this year, he needs to contribute on special teams. It's basically a rule. Look at Andre Yoshibach last year. The only reason he was active was because of the way he was contributing on special teams. And I've watched Burton closer than anyone else in the special teams, periods of practice. And he was at the most kind way to say it was getting his feet wet, getting him a couple snaps and very much learning the positions of, gunner, vice, that kind of stuff. Like, he needed to take a leap in special teams. Maybe the return spot is where he's able to make that a factor. He looked a lot more fluid and comfortable than I expected for a guy who had never done it in a game before. I was really, really impressed by how dynamic he was there, especially because I didn't associate him really as a yak guy. The problem is, though, Charlie Jones comes back. He's not beating out Charlie Jones for that spot. Jones is just too good at those types of returns. And then Chase Brown has the ability, I think, to be one of the better kick returners in the league this year. So I don't see a lane for him to have that starting spot right now. But as we saw when Charlie Jones was out, and it was Trent Irwin and Kwame Lassiter being the first guys up, they don't really have the skills you'd want from that return, guy, especially as those plays become more important this year. So to have a guy who can back him up, or back Jones up, I guess, still be able to give you some nice contributions, that's a good thing to have.
On the third side of the ball, we saw Brad Robbins was still hurt, didn't play in the game, but some good punts from Ryan Reckhout. Do you think he's taking the lead in that punter battle, or is it still a neck-and-neck race?
I wanted to see more from Rico against the Bears. I think, his best punt obviously was one that rolled. There was a low line drive down the middle. It overall wasn't a consistent booming leg that he's demonstrated in practice. So much that, especially when you bake into the fact that statistically Brad Robbins' punts had been, I believe it was 10 yards longer on average than they were in training camp last year. I think he would be my guy on a 53-man roster projection right now. Obviously, a big game coming up here for Rico as well. Kind of one final opportunity in the preseason. Robbins, kind of what's going to end up being is what the injury timeline is. Maybe, you could even probably see a situation where, even if Robbins beats it out, but he needs another week, Robbins is on your 53-man roster. Rico becomes a practice squad elevation for the first 1, 2, or 3 weeks, and you kind of take it from there. But Robbins, to me, seems to be the leader in the clubhouse. Even though the injury could be a minor setback, there are still ways to make it work because he, to me, has looked like the more consistent, reliable, proven punter and holder, especially factoring in the holding element so far this year.
We got Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer, covers the Reds and the Bengals. We'll get to some more Red stuff coming up here in a moment. Bengals shift their focus towards the Colts for joint practice, this time in Cincinnati, ahead of their final preseason game coming up this weekend. Again, as each week of preseason continues or just camp continues, adding more and more elements. So what's going to be the big focus for you, for the Bengals from your coverage side, as far as what they continue to add to really all sides of the ball at this point?
Yeah, I mean, this joint practice against the Colts, I think, will be the best chance all year they've gotten to really see Dax Hill and DJ Turner being competitive against different types and different styles of starting caliber receivers. I really like the Colts receiver room. Maybe it doesn't have a one. I'm not a huge Michael Pittman as a number one receiver guy. When you look at Pittman, you look at Pierce, you look at Downs, you look at Mitchell, who they drafted. 4 very talented different styles of receivers to go throw out DJ Turner and Dax Hill against and really see what you have. This is a very open competition. Maybe it's even a competition that could carry over into the season, and it's something we need more information about. I'm still leaning DJ Turner. He's a guy who, when he's playing well, teams don't throw at him, which is indicative of the technique and overall instincts and receiver tracking ability that I really value at the cornerback position, as well as the top end speed. Dax honestly has exceeded my expectations at corner. I think he's got to improve as a ball tracker and kind of be more patient with the ball in the air. That's something I'd want to see more of before I'd put him in there as a starter full time. But these are the opportunities that'll kind of decide who will get that nod week 1 against the Patriots.
It's early in the week. You expect any starters this weekend to play?
No, that's what the joint practice is for.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of similar way it looked against the Bears, except even maybe, to be honest, maybe even a little bit less of the second team unit than we saw against the Bears.
Last Bengals thing, and we'll transition over to the Reds. I know you're probably never asked about this, but what's your gut on Jamar Chase? So Jamar Chase, obviously the sit-in continues. They return home. Obviously, there was a little noise last week when he missed, I think, one of the final practices before they headed to Chicago. Everyone's just on wait-and-see mode as far as how this contract's going to be handled. Everyone getting a little bit more antsy as we get closer, of course, to the regular season. What should we anticipate as far as what this week could unfold regarding the negotiations with Jamar Chase?
Yeah, I don't have any information here. But the one thing that kind of is important about this week is, I guess, something to compare it to, and there's some other interesting comparisons you can bring up as well. Like something interesting to compare it to would be like, say, Jesse Bates. Different position, obviously. Jesse Bates was a full participant in practice in this week of camp in 2022. When he waited to sign the franchise tag, he decided that I need this time to get ready for the season. Kind of a different situation, but some similarities to last year with T. Higgins, who's kind of in and out of training camp. Then, of course, Burrow was out, and Burrow and Higgins didn't get enough reps in camp to be at the point where their connection in week one against the Browns was worse than I've ever seen it. So this is the week where, like, you kind of start needing to get reps. You know, Burrow and Chase have played together for years. You could have said the same thing about Burrow and Higgins last training camp. And as Burrow explained that lack of connection, Burrow said in week one last year, well, we didn't practice together. And that, I think, was a huge reason why the offense looked out of sync. For an offense that's so designed around Jamar, I think that's a legitimate conversation to have what the offense looks like week one and week two. And kind of it's about that time where to have as full proof of a strong start as possible. It's about that time where Jamar starts needing to get on the field.
All right, Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer, opening up talking Cincinnati Bengals. Step away for a brief second. When we come back, Charlie Goldsmith continues with us as we talk Cincinnati Reds after a horrific weekend. More Off the Bench with Charlie Goldsmith next. All right, we welcome you back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McCollister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. All things Reds and Bengals as we kick off the week. Happy Monday, everybody. Appreciate Charlie Goldsmith with the Cincinnati Enquirer giving us some time here today. Of course, we just dove in and recapped the Bengals' second preseason game against the Chicago Bears. But now we turn our attention towards, well, the Cincinnati Reds. And Elliot, I'll let you kick us off with our Reds coverage here with Charlie Goldsmith.
Well, it was a fun weekend at Great American Ballpark, Charlie. But I have a couple questions here. Number one of my biggest worries, concerns coming into this year was the health of the team. Last year, you go through a franchise record number of players, especially to the starting pitching staff and relievers, the bullpen as well. This year, the starting pitching staff's been pretty healthy for the most part. You look at Andrew Abbott, he's been here. It was a concern last year towards the end. Maybe his arm got a little bit too tired. He hadn't worked that hard or for that long. 162-game season's a very long time. Hunter Green's been healthy up until, obviously, the news came out this weekend. And then you have Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo's been on the IL twice this year, the most recent time, that June 24th blister stint. Since that time, he's given up 33 earned runs and about 40 innings since his return from the IL. Has his struggles in this back half been because of the injury, or is this something else entirely?
Yeah, Lodolo, the finger's fine, but since the blister happened, Lodolo hasn't had a feel for his breaking ball. I think the things can be disconnected. They might have some crossover, but I'm kind of looking at it disconnected. Like a perfect example was the other day, Renfroe's up. That third inning that got away from him. 0-2 in the count, right? This is Lodolo's breaking ball time. Nick Lodolo was a first-round pick because when he gets the 0-2, he'll bury you with that incredible back foot breaking ball. And he throws 2 for balls, and then he really doesn't throw the breaking ball again for the rest of the inning, and he doesn't make it out of the inning. When Lodolo doesn't have the great feel for the breaking ball, it's just hard for him to be the best pitcher he's capable of being at something he's working on adjustments with. It's something he's working to get a better feel for. Pitching is such a feel thing, and Lodolo just doesn't have a great feel for his best pitch right now.
Do you think Noelvi Marte is the person that might get sent down to AAA here as Amed Rosario comes up to the team?
Yeah, I don't like guessing corresponding moves. I don't like calling for someone's job. Yeah. I think Noelvi has been playing solid. I think he just had to play. I think he has done enough to continue to play third base for the Reds. Has it been pretty? No. Has it been consistent? No. Has it been reliable? No. But I think he started to figure some stuff out. The way he's kind of tapping into more opposite field, he's changed his posture, he's made some adjustments, and you're seeing those translate. Then defensively, the error he made in the ninth inning the other day was terrible, but he's still showing overall range at third. I think he's probably still a better third base defender even than what Amed Rosario would be. I think Marte's in a solid spot. And again, just in general, honestly, I don't know who's going to be the guy who gets sent down. I do know whoever they get sent down will be very, very interesting, whether it be Marte, Benson, Espinal, who's been playing great, someone's hurt, whatever it is, it's going to be a very interesting corresponding move today.
That's fair. The Reds are playing Toronto, and obviously I can't ask you to guess again, but I'm gonna do it. Is there any chance in your mind that Joey Votto plays in this series?
I know he wanted, of course he wanted to. Votto also, his biggest priority here was he didn't want to be given any handouts, any favors. Votto wanted to contribute for the Blue Jays. He didn't want to play for the Blue Jays, and Votto doesn't look like a contribute right now. Now, all things being said, I haven't watched the at-bats. There might be a lot more going on. I haven't seen the underlying metrics, but the numbers are a reflection of a guy who hasn't met the goal that he had, which would be to be ready by this point of the season to be a guy who could really contribute and rake for the Blue Jays.
Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer, with us, talking little Reds here as we close out hour number one. Charlie, obviously, Elliot brought it up, with Amed Rosario, of course. That should have been a bigger talking point coming into the show today, but it kind of got pushed back a lot with everything with Hunter Green's injury, of course, and then just being shellacked the way they did against Kansas City. That was kind of is that considered a surprising move? Was that surprising to you when that came across your desk?
I was very surprised. Honestly, they've remade their bench on the fly all season. They made a lot of these types of moves. I was most surprised by this one because when you look at where the Reds are at, they already had a lot of versatile guys who they were looking to get in the lineup against left-handed pitching. They already had, they've been upfront about this. They've been rotating 10 guys through 9 spots against left-handed pitching. And already Espinal probably wasn't getting as much playing time as he deserved. So now that's 11 guys, or maybe one of those 10 gets sent down, but I don't think any of them were particularly terrible in those matchups. Ultimately, though, it's kind of simple. Rosario was hitting .305. That's better than everyone on the Reds, and he's a big league caliber player who adds to their depth. They felt like they needed more depth, especially based on where they were at in AAA right now. Whoever they move down, or whatever the corresponding move ends up being, would be able to be brought back up on September 1st. So from a depth perspective, this is really only a 10-day or a 12-day change for the Reds, and then you kind of add Rosario for free after that.
All right, last thing on the way out, Hunter Green, obviously not a whole lot of update out there, of course, but how concerned should we be? Because right now it's one thing if I know mathematically still kind of in the playoff hunt, but again, you got to be cautious with a guy that's already had Tommy John. You hear elbow soreness, that makes you really, really kind of concerned. Again, not asking you to make decisions on behalf of the Reds, but how concerned should Red fans be that we may have seen the last of Hunter Green this season?
Yeah, first of all, the playoff stuff is completely separate. They're going to protect it and do right and do what's best for Hunter Green 100 times out of 100. I've heard a lot of optimism and hope about Green. So first, let me start here. Green's getting a second opinion. The initial reports, David Bell said, gave the Reds a lot of optimism and even the potential of returning as soon as 15 days. Second opinion, we'll see what happens there. We'll see how that unfolds. Kind of they're still in the information gathering stage there. But if this continues down the track, that the Reds are kind of hopeful it will, Green could be, thrown by the end of the week. And elbow injuries are always concerning, always scary, especially for someone who relies on their velocity. But I haven't heard concern yet. I also haven't heard the second opinion yet, so it's kind of a bit speculative right now. But initially, it's not as scary as it initially looked.
Charlie, thank you so much for kicking off the week with us and kind of just giving us a little information on the Bengals and the Reds, of course. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
See you guys.
All right, Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer, awesome enough to give us some time. I haven't been paying it. Speaking of time, are we good on time? I think we
You're good now.
Yeah, I think we're good now. You want to step away for a few or instant reaction?
Well, we can go. I mean, we can continue. We got 7 minutes left. I was just gonna, just touch on a couple things. People have been calling for Joey Votto, and I know Casey and Tom and Luke talked about it. I'm dialed in. I don't mean to be a downer, because I'm not. I love Joey Votto. What he did for the Cincinnati Reds is probably greater than any player will ever give me. I think he was phenomenal. But saying that, he's been bad. I mean, in AAA, in the minor leagues, he's been not good. 6 for 39 with a home run, 7 walks, and 20 strikeouts. So do I expect Joey Votto to come up and play the Reds in Toronto? No. I think it would be fun. I would want to see it. I know that question was asked to Casey, do you want to see it? Yeah, I would love to see Joey Votto play against the Reds. I'd love to see him interact with Ellie again. I'd love to see him talk to the Reds, the Reds' entire roster again, just take pictures with them. I want to see it all. But at the end of the day, do I think he will? No, I don't think Joey Votto will be back up for this series, and that's okay. I don't, it's one of those things where if he's not going to be able to produce at all, I don't feel the need to watch one of my favorite players ever struggle in the major leagues. I want him to come back. I want to watch it happen, like I just said. But at the same time, I don't want to start tarnishing the legacy or the career of a guy that's had a Hall of Fame career to look and build upon. But yeah, it's unfortunate.
If it happened organically, it's one thing. Just you know what I mean? Like the Blue Jays just called him up just because that's kind of good for them, I guess. Like I think Tom said on his show earlier, sometimes, it's nice when teams just do the right thing or just a good thing. And that's what this would be. It would be a good thing if they did it, a feel-good moment. But yeah, I don't really have an opinion on it one way or another. Would it be cool? Yes. I watched that Pete Rose documentary a couple weeks ago, and it was cool. I hadn't even thought about that, but the return of Pete with Philly to Cincinnati, the ovation that he got, and it would be one, obviously it wouldn't be a return to Cincinnati in this particular situation, so it wouldn't mean as much, but it would be very unique, if you will, to see his first at-bat of the 2024 season at the Major League level be against the Cincinnati Reds, of course.
I think it'd be cool. I want to see him come up, whether he deserves it or not. I think it'd be cool to see him come up. I don't think he has another chance to do it. If he's not up for this series, I don't think he'll ever come up again because he's not a major league player. And that's just kind of the blunt truth of the situation is he's not good enough to play in the major leagues. And the Blue Jays don't play the Reds again. So there's not another, grand ordeal they could have for him to have him play his team for his hometown team. I think it'd be really cool to see him again. I think it's the last chance that he has to be in the majors. So I'm rooting for it, but I'm certainly not holding my breath. I don't care if he comes up and goes 0 for 12 or 12 for 12. I think it'd be cool to see him out there, like you said, interact with the guys, see all the pictures of him and Ellie and all that stuff would be cool. But if he doesn't come up for this series against the Reds, I don't want to see him put on another uniform ever again. But I would be very, very fine with him coming up for the Blue Jays for this series.
Yep.
I just want him to, if he does come up, I want him to do very well. I do not want him to struggle. Otherwise, to me, it's a waste of time, or it tarnishes just a little bit of his legacy, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. I just hope that he does really well if he does come up.
I want to make something very clear. If Joey Votto plays against the Reds in the series, I am cheering for Joey Votto. Yeah. I'm cheering for Joey Votto to hit a home run in all 3 of those games. I'm cheering him to destroy us because that's what I want. I don't know if the Joey Votto career with the Reds ended in the way that I personally would have wanted, but nonetheless, it's over now. I would love to see Joey Votto get some little revenge. It wouldn't be revenge, but it's just.
If Joey Votto gets a hit against the Reds this weekend, will you sing Jolene?
Sure. Or Paint It Black.
Yeah, one of the two.
Which one?
Both. If he hits a home run, both.
I was there for his last game in Great American Ballpark, and he did switch his walk-up songs. I think he switched it for every at-bat. I could be wrong.
I remember he did both of those.
But he did Paint It Black on the last day, and I think he did Jolene on the last day, which is very cool. But, by the way, and this is the last thing I guess I'll say before the end of the segment here. Player walk-ups have been tarnished. That's the one bad thing that the pitch clock has done for baseball. Yeah. There's no really good walk-up songs anymore. There's no because they end in 4 seconds, so you only get 7 notes, and then the walk-up song's over. Even Tyler Stevenson.
He figured it out a little bit though.
Yeah. Tyler Stevenson's funny walk-up of the Anchorman thing, very, very, very funny. But nonetheless, outside of him, I don't even know the walk-up songs we have anymore. Kyle Farmer's the last notable one, God's Country. Unless I'm wrong, as far
as any current Reds, I don't know. I remember Todd Frazier's back in the day.
Fly Me to the Moon, classic.
Those are some good ones. But you're right. It's just so boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
I have Ellie's walk-up song on my playlist.
Really?
What is Ellie's?
It's not in English. So
it's not English.
I don't know, but it's electric.
Cool beat.
Yeah, it's
nice.
fun.
Nice. All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Where are we at with the Hunter Green panic? We'll get to that coming up later on in the show. More Bengals talk. I know we'll get to Elliot's headlines coming up here, but we'll step away for a few. For the YouTube side, Casey will get everyone updated on some housekeeping items and, of course, some ad reads, and then we'll get back into the radio side. More Off the Bench when we come back.
All right.
You already know.
You know what time it is? It's ads. It's time to pay the bills. And who better to do it than me, I guess? Pawnee
That's right.
Water.
You pay our bills.
Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Made by natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. And the result being a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Goes down that gullet nice and smooth, like Elliot says. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNI-water.com so you can buy this great tasting water. And let me tell you about Encore Technologies. The Bengals Report, proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. They deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world, from mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions. They help businesses enhance efficiency,
Productivity. I'm not as good. I don't have as good a timing as Jimmy. I'm sorry. I was close. I'll get better.
Okay, you'll get better.
Productivity.
Thanks, Jimbo. Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins there, here, everywhere, but mainly here. Our last sponsor of the day, the Game Time app. Woohoo. Our ticketing sponsored app. It's one of the best ticketing apps that I've ever used. It's very smooth, very efficient. It shows you great deals right up front, game time deals. Shows you popular deals, things like that. There's some different events coming up tonight and later on, like Green Day, Cincinnati Open. They got deals going on for Bengals games of the regular season. Preseason tickets as well. They're $8, so might as well check that out if you want to go to Paycor this season. That's a cheap way to do so. They've got other things like game time pick filters. They got like the super deals, the hot deals that they occasionally put on there for some of these events that are really, really phenomenal. All the pricing's up front. You get to see exactly where you're sitting at. And the one great thing about Game Time is that they sell tickets basically last minute. It's right up until like first pitch. Well, actually, they sell till after first pitch technically, but they have great deals up until first pitch. So definitely download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Personally love Game Time. Love Game Time. I use it now just about for every event that I go to, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Game Time. Other housekeeping items, please hit the like button. Share this show with a friend. We would really appreciate it. It helps us grow, helps us bring more attention and more viewers like you. Thank you. Also, if you want to become a member, we have $10 memberships. That gets you all the video access on our channel. And then the $25 memberships gives you the discount code for our merch store. And we would appreciate you looking at those as well. Today we're doing
Quiplash. I think to make up from Friday.
Yeah, because we didn't get to do it Friday. So we're going to do Quiplash today. And do we have anything else coming up this week? Anything else, guys? No?
Clown Free Tuesday. That seems to have the chat really fired up. A Clown Free Tuesday. Reed's in the host chair tomorrow.
Wow.
You're welcome, everybody. You're welcome.
So Kenner will not be here Tuesday. Reed will be here hosting, and everything will be just fine. And then Kenner will come back Wednesday. Or are you?
Boo! Boo!
Hump day.
Hump day. Yeah. So we will get back to the radio. Thank you all for watching, and this has been the the ads and housekeeping items on Off the Bench.
I'm getting you a sounder, dude. I'm getting you a sounder. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, back with you here on a Monday. Shout out to Charlie Goldsmith, Cincinnati Enquirer. Awesome enough to give us some time a little bit ago. Again, he covers the Bengals, he covers the Reds. We talked about the Bengals' second preseason game against the Bears, the horrific weekend that was for the Cincinnati Reds. And we opened up just basically talking about the 28 being outscored 28-3, the sweeping loss against the Royals. But one thing that I think we all know is a big deal, but just the injury update and concern about Hunter Green. And I've seen a lot of different takes and a lot of different reactions on social media about Hunter Green and his next start with the Cincinnati Reds. If we come, he gets a second opinion and everything is good to go, and they say he's good enough to return, does the fact that right arm, or the throwing arm, the fact that there is soreness with that elbow, does that scare you at all when we all feel like now the playoffs are pretty much like something that we're just done trying to talk about at this point? Because every time we get our hopes up, every time we try to buy in, we get kicked in the man parts. Does it concern you at all that we're hearing about arm soreness on the throwing arm for Hunter Green? And if he's cleared to come back, is there any part in the back of your brain saying maybe we don't want to see Hunter Green back the rest of the season?
Yeah, I've seen this question posed a lot, and quite honestly, I don't understand how it's a question. Yes, I'm scared about Hunter Green's elbow. He's a starting pitcher who relies almost solely on power and velocity.
Yep.
He has great stuff, don't get me wrong, but the thing that sets him apart is his power and his velocity. He's finally going deep into games. He's finally being able to manage his pitch count, and now he has an elbow injury on an elbow that he's already had Tommy John on. This is terrifying. This is the absolute worst thing this side of a season-ending injury for Elly De La Cruz that could happen to the Reds. Any kind of elbow, shoulder, hand, whatever, pitching arm, throwing arm injury to Hunter Green. This is the worst thing that could happen to the Cincinnati Reds. And any time that there's an injury to Hunter Green's throwing arm, I'm going to freak out about it. The kid already had Tommy John when he was at a ridiculously young age. He's been throwing 100 miles an hour basically since he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated in high school. He has more miles on this arm than almost any pitcher in the league, even though he hasn't pitched a lot of major league innings. He's been throwing hard since he was 14, 15 years old.
Yeah.
Every single pitcher on the MLB velocity list has had some kind of UCL, elbow, shoulder, some kind of injury that has kept him out for significant time this year. And the one that has avoided it so far is Hunter Green. Well, that's obviously changed now. I just hope that it is truly a 15-day IL stint and he's going to be cleared to go and come back. But if this team's more than 5 games out of the wild card spot, I'm not pitching the rest of this year.
Yeah, the quote was a little confusing. Nick Kroll said it was precautionary, but just for fun, we're going to get the MRI and see what that says.
A precautionary MRI, my favorite. I might get one on the way home.
Yeah, I think I will as well. If it's available
Let's
to me. If
compare
they're just
them,
throwing
dude.
them out.
Yeah.
Discount MRIs
That's
on
what
Mondays.
they say about MRIs is they're free.
They're
so.
free, yeah. That's what it has been. I'm concerned, of course, but at the same time, you asked, do I want him to come back? Would you rest him? I think he should finish the year. He's had such a good year. He deserves to be able to say when he's done this season.
Fair.
He has a 2.8 ERA. He's been nothing short of brilliant in 2024. Arguably been the best player on the team outside of Elly De La Cruz. In fact, it's not an argument. He has been the best player on the team outside of Elly De La Cruz. So I'd give that up to him if he wants to finish his season, which will be. Obviously this killed the Cy Young race, but it was a Cy Young type season for him. And to have him have that ability to go out and finish it, I think you leave it up to him. He's earned it.
I think that's fair.
Saying that, do I want to risk an injury for a dead season? No, I don't. The Reds are 6 games back in the wild card now. To answer your question, I'm okay with Hunter Green coming back after this IL and finishing the rest of the season because I think having him complete an 162-game season is important for him. It's important for me as a fan to see it, to know that it's possible. Being on the IL one time in 162 games as a starting pitcher, when Jacob said it, when your biggest trait is you just throw hard as you possibly can, and harder than anybody else in the league almost, then yeah, I'm concerned about the arm. I'm concerned it's going to linger. I'm far more concerned about Nick Lodolo, though, to be fair. Nick Lodolo, I don't know what Nick Lodolo is anymore.
That was going to be the next question. I want to get to Nick Lodolo, but there's the stuff going on in the chat caught my attention too. I wanted to throw this out there. Injuries happen all across baseball. Every team has their rotation beat up throughout the season, right? Are we doing the victim thing like, oh man, why us? It's always us. Are we doing is it always the Reds? Do we have a problem where it always seems to be going back to Cueto, whether it was even not even like the elite pitchers, but whether it was Cueto to Mike Leake to Homer Bailey to now, I'm even looking at this situation with Lodolo and Hunter Green. It's just always something. Is that just baseball or is that a Reds problem, right? Because I see you saying in there every rotation has injuries. You're right. Are we at a point, though, where the injuries just seem to be overboard all the time? Like every year we're talking about the best arms in this rotation constantly. We're holding our breath. We're never able to enjoy long stretches of dominant baseball like what we have had with Hunter Green right now. But again, always holding our breath, waiting for that screeching stop of optimism because of, an injury run.
Yeah, Nick Lodolo gets hurt a lot. I think that's something that we've just come to expect from him. Hunter Green has not. Hunter Green has been pretty much a model of health for the last 2 years or so, 2.5 years.
He was a little hurt last year.
Banged up at the beginning of the year, but he started for long stretches in the last 2 years. Obviously,
is it fair to say that we should always expect at least 1 or 2 short IL stints for a pitcher? Right?
I think. I
didn't mean to interrupt. My bad.
No, people are pointing out that the 2012 Reds pitching staff didn't miss a start that year. The starting 5 or whatever basically didn't miss a start that year. That's great. That's a decade ago. It doesn't happen anymore. Yeah. Starting pitchers get hurt now, and it's at a rate that honestly is a problem for Major League Baseball. That's why they're trying to figure out whether the pitch clock was diving off the deep end too far, and that's why these guys are getting hurt because of a timing thing. And now you see, I know you guys talked about it on Friday, but the potential 6-inning thing to even further manipulate the usage of starting pitchers. I think it's really a big question in baseball, and when you see national media and the commissioner's office and everyone working on reducing pitcher injury league-wide, that's why I don't really freak out about Reds pitchers continuing to get hurt. I think it's a sport-wide problem at this point.
Yeah. I think once we get into the 2 IL stints, 3 IL stints, then we're concerned, or I'm concerned at least. 1 IL stint, I think most. I don't want to say most because I don't know the answer to this, but I feel like a lot of starting pitchers in today's game have at least 1 2 weeks IL break. I don't want to call it a stretch because sometimes these IL stints aren't even for them being injured. It's just for them taking a little breather. I think that's commonplace. I don't write too much into it for Hunter Green.
So when Nick Lodolo last went on the IL, I remember thinking, it's for a blister. I'm like, we get blisters. Blisters, takes a couple outings off, let that thing completely heal up, continue on as normal. I'm glad you asked Charlie about that. Charlie said doesn't think that there's a correlation between his recent struggles and that blister, but nonetheless, he has not been the same since coming back from that blister. And I agree, I don't think that blister has anything to do with it, but something's changed from the time he went on the IL to now. He has not been that same pitcher. But then again, I say that he's never been good this late into the season. That's been the other concern. This is back-to-back seasons where he's looked like, at the beginning of the season, we were literally having the debate, who is the Reds ace? Is it Hunter Green or Nick Lodolo? It's no debate now who the ace is for the Cincinnati Reds, but Nick Lodolo has the expectations to be that true dominant number 2. But to be that true dominant number 2, you have to be good outside of the months of just April and May. You have to be good late into seasons, and that's just something Nick Lodolo has yet to prove that he could do for this team. We're past the point now where we're talking about the youth of these guys. These guys have been around for quite a few years now. I am starting to get a little concerned about the constant talks of these types of things with Nick Lodolo this late every season.
Yeah, I came into the year. He was my biggest question mark. If he was able to stay on the field and stay healthy, he's going to be one of the Reds' best players. Unfortunately, he hasn't been that this year. He had 2 IL stints, and the last one pretty much derailed his entire season. So I think he had a 2.7 ERA before the start in Boston. After the start in Boston, he had a 2.9, went on the IL, and his ERA now is 4.5, 4.6. So it's been a disaster. And do I have concerns? Sure. The good news for the Reds, if there is good news, is that we do have starting pitching depth in the minor leagues. I expect that to be used at some point. That was the one question I didn't get to ask Charlie. Is there a chance Rhett Lauder comes up in September? Is there a chance of that? Because if Hunter Green's hurt, and the way I don't want to predict injuries, I don't want to do that, but the way Nick Lodolo's season is going right now, I wouldn't be shocked if he went on the IL one more time and if he went on the IL one more time, I would want to see somebody, one of our young guys. I'd preferably not Lyon Richardson. No disrespect. I would like to see somebody else come up, give a start or two, and we'll go from there.
Get Phillips on the plane from the warehouse league.
God, poor Connor Phillips, man. Poor guy. But yeah, that's what I expect to happen at some point in September as the season continues to unravel. I'm not going to call the season mathematically dead because obviously you can't say it. But it's tough right now going through it and losing Hunter Green, not having Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott again. I don't mean to cause a panic. Andrew Abbott's still not where he was at the beginning of the season. It's been a slow downhill trajectory here. And I don't know. I don't know if our starting pitching is going to last until the end. I thought they would this year. It doesn't look like they're going to. And I hope I'm wrong, but it doesn't look like they're going to.
Yeah. When you sweep your rival and you end up just treading water in the standings, and then you turn around and you get swept and you drop down to 6, it's pretty hard to grab onto much hope left in the season. If it was every time we won, we'd climb up, and every time we lost, we'd climb down, then you could say maybe we just get hot in a period of time and can seize it, which is still the case. It's still only 6 games, but when you seem to have a very hard time gaining ground regardless of wins, that 6 looks a little bit bigger to me.
4 home sweeps the Reds have had this season. 4 home sweeps.
One thing that got lost over the weekend, too, that I think had this news come out Friday before Game 1 against the Royals, I think that would have really put Reds Twitter into a frenzy of excitement. But Amed Rosario, we should be way more excited about this than what we are. I just feel like it's too late now. Am I wrong? I mean, doom and gloom. What the hell was that?
What was that?
Did you guys hear that, too? Am I just losing my mind?
I think you're just losing your mind.
No, I'm
not losing my mind. But we should be more excited about that. Doom and gloom, 6 games back. I just feel like, is it too little, too late? I love the addition. I do. But I just feel like is it a little, too late with this addition off the waiver wire?
I got excited about Bader and Renfroe, so I'm not going to get excited about Amed Rosario.
Yeah,
but hopefully he's good.
He'll join the likes of Harrison Bader, Hunter Renfroe, Asdrubal Cabrera. Some of the late season. Asdrubal Cabrera, a historic run he went on. I think 0 for his first 50. I'm not going to sit here and say Amed Rosario is saving the season. He's had a good year for what it's worth.
He's the best bat on the team now.
He's hitting, 300?
Yeah.
He's hitting 300, so, yeah. He only has 2 home runs on the year, a 0.6 WAR, OPS 746.
OPS 0.6 WAR probably ranks top 5 on the team?
Probably. Yeah. A lot of them are certainly negative. But yeah, good for the Reds for making a move that they should have made at the beginning of the year.
Yep. But didn't want to blow it
up. To be fair, Santiago Espinal, good job. That was a good signing. And it ended up being a good signing.
All right, should have got permission.
Jamier Candelario, bad signing.
By the way, I should have got permission to run Elliot's headlines this late in the show, but
No, we should wait till 11:50.
Maybe I'll ask.
Well, we got one more we'll get one more minute here, and then we'll do it next segment.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, it's next segment. I mean, again, I got to ask permission. I mean, I don't think any of us know what we're doing.
No, I
we
wouldn't
need
think
someone
so
to tell us how to do things. So, just saying. But nonetheless,
put
all
my
right.
phone number in the chat, Mark. I could never.
I got you.
Don't you dare.
Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. We'll be right back. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Jacob, college football this weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
Week 0. I love it. I don't even care who's playing. I don't even know.
Oh, it's horrible.
It's phenomenal.
Is
it?
It's
horrible.
Hold on.
It's incredible.
He likes stuff that not a lot of other people like, but I am curious. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you what's the headline of Week 0.
Great games.
Jacob?
Florida State, Elliot's favorite team, goes to Georgia Tech.
Defending national champions, right?
That's right. If they would have made the playoff.
Storied football program, Georgia Tech.
That's right. SEC powerhouse in the 60s. So Florida State at Georgia Tech, 11.5-point spread in that game. Love Florida State minus 11.5. Then Montana State, New Mexico at 4. That's It's not the best game. I'll give you that one.
What's the spread on that one?
I'll give you that. 10.5 Montana State. Montana State's a good team. They were in the
Do it, Elliot.
They were in the FBS championship last year.
Okay.
So
all right.
they're a little bit of a surprising team. But SMU Nevada at 8. Nevada just named a transfer quarterback as their starter. He's a pretty exciting player. I think they'll be somewhat surprising this year, but SMU, first game in the ACC, I think they'll win that one pretty easily. And then my favorite game, the best thing about college football season, the 11:59 kickoffs, because you can't kick off after midnight. Hawaii has a game on the island in week 0.
Aloha.
And what is better than betting on Hawaii at the island? Nothing. And spoiler alert, you're going to have to listen to that game on radio. So it's a beautiful, beautiful slate. 4 great games, and then you get into Thursday. There's a bunch of games on Thursday as well. So we're in the full swing of things here going into college football season. It's just the best.
High school football kicks off this week.
That's right.
That's what's wild. I have a game to prepare for this week. I can't
Really?
believe high school football is already upon us. Here's a little college football update. Racing and reckless driving charges were dismissed against Georgia starting linebacker Samel Mondin Jr. on Monday. His attorney confirmed to ESPN. So we know he did this, but they were just dismissed.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. What about the other 30 traffic violations from this offseason?
I tell you what, if I ever get in trouble, I'm trying to find one of these Georgia attorneys.
That's right.
They are excellent.
Well, just speculation.
Speculate, dude. Speculate.
If I had to guess, I think it probably goes something like you walk into the Athens courthouse, you show them the 2 national championship rings, and Kirby
I'm
says,
screwed.
"We need this guy to do that again," and the guy goes, "Go Dogs," and that's how the trial goes. I hate Georgia, man.
I could tell. Georgia or Michigan? Which one do you hate more?
Oh, I hate Michigan more, but I hate Georgia a lot.
I saw you gave all the beautiful Miss Ann Arbor the nice greeting over the weekend.
Yeah,
You don't
got
have
to
talk
see
about
her.
it,
Got to see
yeah.
her. Wonderful lady. Wonderful lady.
All right.
Go ahead, sorry.
It's now time for Elliot to get us caught up on all the headlines. Elliot with the headlines.
Oh,
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
that's right. That's right, Jimbo. Headlines.
We're gonna have to change that because you don't love David Bell anymore.
Yeah, I don't.
You did
I did for so long.
for so long.
And I still don't really blame him, but at the end of the day, like I can only hear the it's just one game. We're on to Toronto. The Bill Belichick press conference works if you're Bill Belichick.
It also works in a 16-game season.
Yeah.
All right, we're on to the next one. We're going to use this week to get better. You can play tomorrow, dog.
Yeah, you're not preparing for the Blue Jays. All right, here we go. The Reds, they've done it. They've answered their sweep of the Cardinals with getting swept by the Royals. Good stuff. The Reds lose 8-1 yesterday. The offense mustered up 7 hits and a run. The Reds lose the series 28-2. Good try.
3.
28-3? Was it 3?
Yeah, 1 each day.
You're right. It was 28-3. Sorry, I missed a run.
Patriots came
Are
back.
you
Why
sure?
can't we?
Did we not get shut out?
We did not.
Okay, good for the Reds. That makes me feel a lot better.
If we would have played another game, we would have come back.
Yeah, you're right. In the run differential?
Yeah, well, Pythagorean's all I care about.
Yeah, that's true. Andrew Abbott struggled, 5 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned runs. Brady Singer, like most of the Royals pitching staff, completely shut down the Reds' inept offense. Santiago Espinal did go 3 for 4. He's hitting .470 with a 500 OBP and an 800 slug over his last 15 games. 23 hits and 4 home runs during that stretch.
His last 15 games span how many games?
Oh, probably 50.
Yeah.
For reference, Jeimer Candelario is hitting .220 with a 267 OBP during that same stretch. 3 home runs, one less home run than Santiago. Will Benson is hitting .170 with a 220 OBP and 13 strikeouts over his last 15 games. Good job, Will. Other news, as we already mentioned, Amed Rosario is a Cincinnati Red. Hunter Green is on the IL. I wrote this, so I'm going to say it. Reds and Blue Jays start their series in Toronto tonight. Kevin Goldsmith is on the bump for the Birds. He rolls into town with a 4.20 ERA, 420, nice, with 126 strikeouts and 139 innings pitched. So good for the Reds. They play the Blue. I don't think the Reds have named a starter yet, if I'm wrong on that.
I can double check.
As of this morning, I had not seen a starter, and I haven't checked my
It
phone
is
during-
still undecided. Against Goldsmith.
All right, maybe Carson Spires. Who knows?
Maybe they give him an opener again.
Yeah, maybe. Around the league, Yankees lose at extras 3-2. The final against the Tigers last night. They take the series against the Yankees, so good for Detroit. Braves win 3-1 over LA, take the series against the Angels. Giants, they split with Oakland. as they win yesterday 4-2. I think a 2-game series that was. San Diego has won 8 series in a row coming into Colorado this weekend. They fell to Colorado and lose the series and lose the season series. Padres, I think, are 15 games above 500. Lose the season series to Colorado. Interesting. Dodgers take 2 of 3 from St. Louis. Shohei Ohtani hit his 39th home run of the year. Cardinals have lost 7 of 9. Rangers take their only game of a 4-game set against the Twins, 6-5 the final. Blue Jays shut out the Cubs 1-0 yesterday, did lose the series. Brewers sweep the Guardians. They scored 9 total runs in their sweep of the Guardians. They shut out Cleveland 2-0 yesterday afternoon. Astros shut out the White Sox 2-0 to officially eliminate them from playoff contention. What was your favorite memory of the White Sox? Their 2 15-game losing streaks?
No, I think it was the one win in Oakland.
Okay, the one win in Oakland was a good one. The Rays led 6-0 over the Diamondbacks, blew the lead. Then in extras, they came back to win it in 12. So good for the Rays. Pirates, they get blown off the map against the Mariners, losing 10-3. They did win that series. Pittsburgh is 3-11 over their last 14.
Good for them.
NFL news, we touched on some of it. They lose 27-3 to the Bears. Woodside, 17 for 25 for only 132 yards. That's kind of wild.
2 picks.
And 2 interceptions. Rocky Lombardi, 4 for 8, 30 yards. Noah Kane led Cincinnati rushers at 28 yards and 8 carries.
Just go back to that LSU well, baby. It's worked out well for us before.
That's right. Kwame Lassiter II had 5 catches and 33 yards, both which led Bengals wideouts. Chris Jenkins, as Jacob mentioned, added a sack, and Evan McPherson added a 54-yard field goal. Evan McPherson tied the Reds' runs this weekend with that one field goal.
Good for him.
Cincinnati Open finals are this afternoon. Francis Tiafoe trailed 5-2 in the 3rd set last night. He forced a tiebreak and won against Rune. He will be playing the biggest match of his career against world number 1 Yannick Sinner. Arina Sabalenka is taking on Jessica Pegula? I don't know. Tom said it on the show earlier. On the women's side. WNBA, the Fever beat the Storm 92-75. Caitlin Clark broke the WNBA single-season rookie mark for assists. She leads the league with almost 8.5 assists per game. She had 9 yesterday, reaching 232, passing the record of 224 set in 1998. The overall season assist record was set last season by Alyssa Thomas at 316. So she's about, 70-something shy of Alyssa Thomas.
She'll get it next game.
She still has 12 games.
She'll get it
2-0 against Tarasi.
2-0 versus Tarasi.
You see that bum Skylar Diggins or whatever, throw a shoulder at her?
See, I like that. A little,
She
a
walked
little
faster through the shoulder.
Speeding up to hip check a star player. That's how you know the league's arrived.
How about the loser coach apologizing? That ticks me off.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, the Fever coach apologized because she kept the starters in a little longer than the other team's coach wanted. So then they had a little back and forth, and she started caving and apologizing. I'm like, stop apologizing. You look soft. You look weak. Play the starters the entire game. Run the score up. Do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. But good for Caitlin Clark. CC.
She's a beast.
She's going to win Rookie of the Year, right? Those odds still have to be...
You can still bet it. You can still bet it. Yeah, it's just Caitlin and Angel Reese are the only two that are bettable. But
it's cute they're letting Angel still be on.
Yeah, Angel Reese has a shot, plus 850.
Oh.
Caitlin Clark, minus 3,500.
Oh.
No one rebounds their own misses and puts them back better than Angel.
That's right. She had another double-double over the weekend.
Did she?
Went 3 for 14 from the field and then added 4 free throws.
Bum.
All-star.
All-star.
People forget Caitlin Clark wasn't an Olympic athlete because she didn't vibe well with the team.
People don't forget.
Dogged him in the scrimmage game. USA's gold medal women's team lost to the WNBA All-Stars.
Hilarious. That's it. Those are your headlines.
And there you go. Elliot, with the headlines.
Hideki Matsuyama won the St. Jude championship yesterday as well. I don't know if anybody watched that.
Good for Dak.
But he was winning by a lot, blew the lead. I think he shot 5 over in the last 5 holes or something, and then eventually made a 36-foot putt to win the tournament. So very, very cool by Hideki Matsuyama.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Monday. Final radio segment, more Off the Bench when we come back.
Evan's putting up a battle, man. Yes. Just don't have the energy to battle.
All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. ESPN's Jeff Passan tweeted this out earlier today. The best team in Major League Baseball is on pace for 95 wins. The last year without a 100-win team was back in 2014. I didn't realize that we were on pace to have no 100-plus win teams this year.
That's the part that I think Jacob said it maybe last week or the week before. That is so frustrating because the door couldn't be more wide open. I mean, the door was wide open from the beginning of this season, and the Reds just never capitalized once on it. I'm seeing you can bet the Padres right now at plus 2,000. I think Padres are one of the most talented teams in the league. Plus 2,000 to win it all. I think really anybody can win it. I think the division was open. I think the Brewers have closed it now, but I think there was a chance the Reds could have won this division. And now it's just so disappointing. It's disappointing for a number of reasons. It's disappointing because last year gave us all this hope and excitement and energy. For this year, you let all that down. It's disappointing because the National League wild card, respectfully, is a joke. And any team could get that third and final spot. Could have been the Reds. Now it's not. It's disappointing because we were injured all season long, and now our best player, second best player, Hunter Green, injured. So it's just disappointing on a number of levels, and I'm hoping next year is the first year we see change, is the first year I see a consistent baseball team, one that does the fundamentals correctly, one that runs the bases right. I'm hoping that we see change. I'm hoping we see a right fielder that can consistently get at bats, hit for power, play solid defense. Jake Fraley, I don't mean to crush him. Jake Fraley's hitting-wise fine. He gets singles a lot. But his power has evaporated. The Monstars took his power. Will Benson, I don't know what else. I don't want to get down on a guy like Will Benson because I love Will Benson. But his season has been horrendous, horrific, horrible. He couldn't have had a worse season. So, yeah, I expect some change next year. I don't know. Jamier Candelario is another guy I'm going to keep talking about because Jamier was the big signing. Jamier's been disappointing. He's been, the second worst qualified player on the Reds since the All-Star break, one of them. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be a Reds fan right now, and the only thing I can hope for is change, but I don't know how you can hope for change, expect change, when the past 30 seasons have been the same.
There's a lot of change that's needed on this team to actually compete, and that's why I feel like a month ago we sat here and we said it's time to turn our focus to 25, just because there's so many holes on this team that need to be filled, and that's why we go on the list of blame for this season. And I'm going to keep injury at one. I think, if this team's healthy, there's still a lot of questions about where we might be. But the number two thing I blame for this season is the rest of the National League. Play better baseball.
Yeah.
If the National League teams, and if the teams in the National League in this wild card race were better like they usually are, this door would have been closed weeks ago, and we wouldn't be, we swept the Cardinals. Maybe we can beat the Royals and sneak in, and then you sweep the Royals and you get knocked down to your knees again, and maybe we'll get bought back in if we sweep the Blue Jays. But I blame the rest of the National League for being so poor and giving a team that's been this up and down, this much of a roller coaster this season, this little of sustained production. You shouldn't have the door open on August 19th, and they still do. And that's why every loss hurts so much, and that's why every injury hurts so much, and that's why, you get swept 28-3 by the Royals, and you're almost upset about it. This team's season has been over from a World Series competitive standpoint for a long time, but they keep dragging you along, giving you the illusion of being competitive.
They're going to win 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row at some point for the remainder of this season. I'm just not gonna be foolish enough to buy back in on a 5-game winning streak.
Because it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
But it's going to.
Yep.
Again, they got it after that sweep of the Cardinals, got to a game of 500. We were all jacked on Friday, at least I was. I felt like Elliott was kind of coming around a little bit, but I see that Bengals hat. I mean, that's fitted and ready to go. That's going to be the hat of Elliott for the next however many months.
That's right. Bengals Elliott's coming back, so that's good. That's good. That's good to see. It's hard for me to watch the Reds at this point. I barely watch them. I'll get the updates when I have to tweet. I'll tweet about them. But outside of that, it's hurt my soul.
We're 124 in. How long till Bengals are leading the show? and we tuck.
It's until
tuck the
it's
Reds.
Week 1.
Is it Week 1?
It's Week 1.
Just as soon as
the week leading up to.
You don't think? Yeah, I was gonna say you don't think it's the week before the.
Well,
week
to
one?
be
It's the
fair,
week leading up
tomorrow
for.
is a clown-free Tuesday, so my guess is tomorrow.
It's gonna be pretty Bengals heavy. If I
It's
had to
gonna
guess.
be tomorrow. We'll have our guy, and we got Bengals stuff coming up. I just thought that with the backups to the Bengals playing, the Reds were louder over the weekend. Not
100%.
better. The Reds were just louder over the weekend as far as that's concerned. Reds 6 games back of the wild card, as you guys talked about. The Cubs 5.5 back, Cardinals 5 back, the Giants 4, Mets 2 back, and the Braves holding on to that final wild card spot. 66 and 58 are the Atlanta Braves at this point. As we talked about, no team is on pace to win more than 100 games this season for the first time since 2014. The Yankees 73 and 52. The Yankees and Orioles, they're just trying to give that division away at this point. I mean, playing the Yankees, another lead slipped right through their fingers. I saw Jimmy's Tigers came back and clinched it last night as far as that goes. So, but Yankees holding on to that the Royals after sweeping the Reds, holding on to that final wild card spot in the American League, the Braves, and the National League as far as that's concerned.
Don't look now, but Kinner's beloved Guardians, that division might be slipping through their fingers.
I need the Royals to win it.
I think they might.
I have a future on the Royals, and I need them to win it badly. Let me ask you this:
Twins 2 games back, Royals 3 games back.
Yes, I saw that. Twins have been on fire.
If they don't get hurt, they're going to really make a run.
I agree. When do you think this debate's going to end? Right here.
When he's
if you
Because I saw it going on in the chat.
Have you noticed? I purposely didn't go there. We know he's going to be the one that eats it for everything that's going on and going wrong right now. I wanted to make a point when we opened. Like, it's easy to keep blaming David Bell, but at a certain point, Ellie, come on, you're great. Be great. Like that was bad over the weekend. I was like, at some point you got to blame the players, and not just the players that aren't on the field. The players that are on the field, the guys that do have responsibility of keeping you in games, even games that you may not always win. They weren't even competitive over the weekend. But I did get pretty annoyed with Bell's little post game, that was.
Can I get David Bell 2025 opening day manager at plus money?
If you could, I would.
I would hammer it.
I'd bet it.
I would
too.
absolutely hammer it.
The only way
I think he'll be the manager.
He's the manager. Yeah.
The only way he's going to get fired is if something truly horrible happens, where they lose 15 in a row here or 20 in a row. Something catastrophic would have to happen.
Over the weekend, though, they've lost big series all year, but they were competitive. That was embarrassing over the weekend.
I forget who it was. I think it was Bryce Spalding, but he tweeted that you can look up the Reds' record against teams over 500. You can look up the Reds' record against teams under 500, home, away, all the different splits. I want to see the Reds' record in series the fan base dubs as make or break series.
Oh yeah,
because they've never won one.
No,
ever.
I said the whole stretch. I didn't even point out one series. The stretch with the Tigers, Nationals, Marlins, and Rock. They went through that stretch under 500. I give them a whole stretch. Just be above 500 for those 4 series against terrible teams. Terrible. And they couldn't do it.
So, Toronto, 58 and 66. Let's look at this upcoming opportunity, if you will, for the Reds, right? So, Toronto, well under 500, right? Pittsburgh is on a free fall, unlike any free fall I've seen before. And then you got the A's. You got 3 at Toronto, 4 at horrible Pittsburgh, and then you got the horrible A's coming to Great American Ballpark before you get to the Brewers, and that's a whole other animal that we won't even bring into this equation. These are 3 series that theoretically we should be like, they should not have been embarrassed the way that they were against the Royals. Because I was like, man, just get through the Royals, don't get embarrassed, and then there's going to be a lot of momentum taken into 3 very winnable series with the Blue Jays, Pittsburgh, and Oakland. Still 3 winnable series, but again, as you guys have talked about, this has 500. They're going to split all of these. Like, I know you can't split a 3 game, but you know what I mean? Like, at the end, there'll be a game under, a game over when we look at all of this stuff. It's just...
I expected them to lose to the Royals. I thought they'd win a game.
Yeah.
Getting swept the way they did, what are we doing?
5-5 in the next 10 against these 3 bad teams?
That would be horrible.
6-4, 5-5?
5-5 in their next 10, but it's a 5-game win streak starting right now.
Correct.
And then 5 losses in a row.
All right, as we wrap up some things on the radio side, Casey, the Bengals put out an announcement recently, correct?
They did. They put out their uniform schedule.
Fun one.
Yeah.
2 orange games. It's exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not hating here. I don't like the all orange on orange. I just
You don't?
I don't.
I wouldn't have liked it if they had orange socks, but I like it with the black socks.
It's just too orange. I know that sounds really silly.
That's
fair.
fair.
That's the purpose of these. I don't know. I think the black on black looks awesome. I love, obviously, the whiteout.
The all orange is my least favorite of the full color uniforms.
Like Burrow
for
usually
sure.
makes stuff pop. I didn't think it popped. I just thought,
I like it. I think
not
it'll be
good.
fun, and I think it'll be fun for the fans to get into it, do the all orange and everything.
I'm wondering if they like do the black jersey on orange pants, or
I would like that. That would pop. That would look cool.
but it doesn't exactly tell you on the schedule what they are. It just tells you the actual uniform. I don't know if it tells you the pants combination, unless they're doing like all black and then all white and then all orange now without.
Yeah, that's what I
mixing
think it
them.
is.
You think that is what
Yeah.
it is?
Well, their away uniforms have always been white on white. They just alternate the black pants in. So, yeah, the way I read this was the orange block with the weak text was the jersey color, and then the block below with the team and the stripes was the pants color. That's how I read the graphic originally. So, makes me think it's all color rush all year long.
Which is cool.
Then the Philly game, you can see the little Bengal tiger head in there instead
White.
of the stripes, so that's the white helmet. I think that's at least how I thought of it. Or maybe that's helmet and then jersey, and then there's no pants involved.
No pants? They're going to go pantless, dude?
Maybe they
Nice. That's weird.
Pantsless. I know a lot of people would love to see that.
Ain't that kind of party. I see Bengal Bros got upset because I said I didn't like the orange on orange. Like, it's okay.
No, I think that's
My gosh, people.
I was not as crazy about them as a lot of people were, but I think they're fun.
Yeah, I think AJ says the Browns have the worst uniforms in all of professional sports. Sit this one out. Oh, okay.
I don't hate the Browns uniforms.
You have an opinion about the Browns jerseys. I'm not gonna. I don't care. That's
you
cool.
see
You don't like their jerseys? Super. You win. Cool, dude.
Did you see the Broncos released orange pants? I know you guys got worked up about that when the Bengals did.
Oh no.
Other teams are wearing orange pants now too.
I
So
mean,
come for everyone.
I'm just saying, like the Browns have the worst jerseys in all of football. Then why does your team keep trying to copy their color schemes on everything? I'm just throwing that out there. Y'all started it, not me. As far as that goes.
Right.
No. Over the weekend, preseason game. I know we touched on it a little bit ago. Man, so you got to see Caleb Williams. I mean, feeling pretty good about that second string defense holding him down. I mean, like, I don't know, Caleb Williams. What do you make of Caleb Williams? He had that nice little throw on the run. I like that. There's some superstar like qualities of the kind of plays he makes. But man, that offense is supposed to be pretty potent, and the second string defense for the Bengals kept him in check pretty much.
Yeah, when it comes to Caleb Williams, I'm already victory lapping. I did it. I'm right.
Really?
He's incredible. He's going to be a top 10 quarterback in the league this year. Yeah, I'm already just kind of nailing that coffin down. It's done. He's did it.
I will say his style of play reminded me of another former Bears quarterback, Justin Fields. I saw a lot of Justin Fields in there.
I saw a lot more of another guy.
Who's that?
I'm not going to say it.
Why don't you say
It
it?
was just one game.
Okay.
I'm not going to say it. It was Patrick Mahomes. I saw a lot of Patrick Mahomes.
Look behind the back.
Oh, man, he looks so good.
The
Are you
Patrick
allowed to
Mahomes-
compliment? Bengal Bros might get upset if you compliment the behind the back pass.
It's true. Patrick Mahomes plays the game the way Josh Allen wants to play the game, but when
Yeah.
Mahomes does it, it works.
Yep.
You're not
That's
wrong.
that's basically
100%. You're not
wrong. It's
He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
I don't get like the Tom Brady hate I got. I don't get anybody who hates Patrick Mahomes. I really don't.
Because-
other than he just wins a lot.
all the stuff that people hate about him. It's not him. It's
wife,
It's
his
his wife. It's his
brother.
brother. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's-
but
His dad.
he doesn't carry himself like poorly. Like in fact,
No.
The fact that he's so normal is kind of wild when you see
He did a
all this
full
stuff-
renovation of Texas Tech's facilities.
Really?
Yeah. He sponsored their whole new turf.
I don't get the hate for him. I think he makes football fun to watch. Like, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I don't like the Chiefs. I don't root for the Chiefs. When the Chiefs play on prime time, it's my favorite time of the week.
The chat said they think you're a Kansas City fan through and through.
They think I'm a Kansas
You were
City
rooting
fan.
for the Royals this weekend.
Aw,
you're rooting for the
Elliot,
Chiefs
come
all
on.
the time.
I don't. Was that Mouse Cop who said that?
Yeah.
I don't root for the Reds to lose. I'm just not surprised when they do. I don't you can't be shocked by them anymore. I don't cheer when the Reds lose baseball games. I don't. I just at some point it's just like I know what they are. I know what being a fan of the Cincinnati Reds is. I'll complain about it. I'll watch them until I can't anymore. And that's it. That's how my seasons go. I don't expect the postseason. I don't expect a World Series. I don't expect anything from them anymore. They just show up. They play 162 games. They're just there so they don't get fined. That's it.
Everett Henry says, are we totally forgetting last season when he was a total diva when the Chiefs were sliding? I mean, what?
He complained about an offensive offsides that's been called like once in the history of the NFL. I think anyone would probably complain about that.
But
I don't know. I root against Mahomes as loudly as every other Bengals fan. I hate the Chiefs a lot. I don't hate Mahomes. He's incredible.
But Caleb, I know you're high on Caleb, but like he's one of those where I don't like him Monday through Saturday, but I feel like on Sunday I'm going to be like, oh damn, that was pretty good. That was a pretty nice play.
You're going to have to watch Bears games, I think. Like, just as a fan of the league, like, I think you're going to have to just watch Bears games to see. It's the same thing that when Mahomes broke in Kansas City in the first couple of weeks, everyone was kind of just like, who is this guy? Like, maybe I got to start tuning into these games.
See, here's the problem, though, and it's not you, and it may not be you too, but here's the sense I get. I noticed it with C.J. Stroud and the Texans. Some Bengals fans get very territorial of Joe Burrow. So when we compliment other quarterbacks, what they hear is Joe Burrow sucks. Man, Patrick Mahomes, man, that was exciting. You hear Joe Burrow stinks. Caleb Williams, man, he's looking a lot like Patrick Mahomes. Joe Burrow stinks. That's what you hear. Like C.J. Stroud, man, he's freaking fantastic. You see what he did with the Texans? Joe Burrow stinks. Like that's what the Bengal Bros hear. Most of it. It's like that's what happens here. Or do we forget about, like Everett? Oh, we forget about Patrick Mahomes being a diva last year. What? Yeah, we did, because he was too busy winning a Super Bowl the rest of the time. Like, what are we doing? It's okay.
Well,
it's
just
okay.
the
It's a compliment of the
Bengals
quarterbacks.
fandom it's either be positive or get out is what it is. And
Yeah, that's true.
That's why they want me out.
well, yeah, like you're not allowed to say anything remotely close to negative about the Cincinnati Bengals. You can't talk about it. And that's I don't know. I kind of disagree with it, but at the same time, I somewhat understand it. You get 17 NFL games. Why would I waste my time getting upset about the Bengals and 5 of them just because?
With 162, you can be negative for 75 and still have
correct.
90 to be
I'm
excited
positive.
about.
I'm a positive Reds fan for a lot of this season. Just for probably a decent amount of it, I'm also very, very negative.
I saw Stephen A. Smith he just did the behind the back pass on first take.
Nice.
Oh yeah, he's feeling it. All right, folks, that wraps it up on the radio side. Clown Free Tuesday. Is that how we're gonna like promote? Like my off days will be like promoted as Clown Free.
I'll whip up a graphic.
Please.
I have. So
big clown nose.
This is for Everett.
Floppy red shoes.
This is for Everett. Okay. In September, there's an entire week. It's the week of the 16th. Okay. It'll be a clown-free week.
That's gonna be special.
It's gonna be a clown-free week. I might, check in every once in a while from Pensacola, but it'll be a clown-free week. That's my gift to you guys. You're welcome. All right. On radio, that wraps it up for us. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right. Got, 16 minutes?
You said you're off the week of September 16th?
Oh, yeah.
How are you missing that?
What's that week?
Bengals at Chiefs is that week. If we lose by like 30, you're canceling that vacation.
No, I'm just going to. I saw Casey work magic today for Tom and for Luke. He will work out magic
you
for
will
me.
host.
I will get up on that Monday and spread the Kinner cheer, the clown cheer, as far as that goes. We're going to get koozies maybe, just clowns on them.
I'd love that. RM says, according to Elliot, every one of Bell's decisions is based on the computer. I stand by that.
I agree with that.
That decision on Friday night to keep Fernando Cruz in, we don't think that was a computer-based thing. Their chances of winning that game, according to, quote, the computer, was like 2%.
Right, so you leave him in.
So you leave him in, and you save your relievers for the next 2. That's absolutely a computer decision. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying that's how every manager, 90% of managers in Major League Baseball operate now.
I think that's where I dissent from the Barry Larkin take, the take that a lot of people agree with him. The sentiment is correct. I don't think the manager that is grabbing players and yelling at them when they, aren't hustling and making decisions on his own, I don't think that manager exists anymore.
No.
At least not at a rate that you can convince players in free agency to come play for him.
I don't think front offices want that manager.
100% they don't.
I don't think they're hiring that manager.
Absolutely not.
So,
Who's that version though of that today? Was that La Russa no longer managing? I get that, but was that the last one?
Bruce Bochy, and the Rangers put $200 million into a team and went out and got a guy who's won 3 World Series, and they won 1, and now they have the worst record of a team since coming off a World Series in the history of the sport.
But the one thing about baseball's the one sport where there's no sustainability with long-term success, though. That's the thing. So I get what you're saying, the fall off. I don't know is that on Bochy or it's sometimes I feel teams.
No, but that's what I'm saying is everyone credited him for the World Series. Oh, you've hired this guy that knows how to win. He came in and turned it around, and now they have a terrible season and no one seems
so-
to kill Bochy. But my point still stands. I don't think the manager swings the needle that much anyway. I mean, the Cubs went and hired the best manager on the market, and they've
That's the best argument
drastically
one can
underperformed
use.
this year. So
It's the best manager objectively that you could have went out and got, and you paid him a lot of money. So the franchise has proven they want to win because they're hiring a guy who's won a lot,
and
who's
people
a great manager.
think he's that old-fashioned manager. I mean, we don't know whether he is or not,
Correct.
but they think he's somewhat of that old-fashioned manager.
And Craig Counsell's he's cooked up one of the most disappointing seasons I've seen.
Hey, they're
Next to the Reds.
They're 5 back, dude. They're
That's
5
true.
back. Reed's Cubs, they're 5 back, man. You know? Did you guys see our guy Zach Cozart
boy.
tweet out over the weekend? I don't know where you guys are at with the Trevor Bauer thing, but he tweeted out that the
God.
Reds need to add Trevor Bauer, that they need to be when the new. Now, to be fair, this was before they just got their buttholes kicked in. Okay, it was after that first game, but it was after the news of Hunter Green that, hey, the Reds should kick the tires on Trevor Bauer, especially if they're going to be missing some Hunter Green for some time. Now, again, that's wherever you are with that. Let's just say you agree with that. That's like basically you saying, hey, Trevor Bauer is equal to Hunter Green at this point. I have no idea. Trevor Bauer was one of the best pitchers in baseball when that whole scandal went down, and he hasn't pitched in baseball since. He's pitched against major league hitters during those, back in spring training.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done anything, obviously, in the regular season back in Major League Baseball. That's not a Reds move. The Reds will not do it. That's too aggressive of a move for a team like Cincinnati. But I am shocked that no team has kicked the tires on Trevor Bauer, especially when everything came out and everything was dropped. Like, there was no charges. There was nothing. In fact, it was found that she made all that up. And I'm just very surprised, not to get into the uncomfortable conversation piece of that, but he came out on the right side of that. There was nothing that he did wrong outside of he's just not a likable dude, and maybe that plays a huge role in this. Are you surprised he's not back in the league?
Not one bit.
Nope.
I think everyone points to his numbers in the Mexican League, that they need to call him up because he's tearing that up. He has, 16 strikeouts in one game, stuff like that. Crazy numbers. Yeah, 40-year-old Robinson Cano hit .431 and won the Triple Crown in that league this year. Sign me with.
Yeah.
What do we?
I mean, he's going to come
He's not
up.
exactly playing top.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying, like, if it happened.
No, not you. I
I'd
just
be
mean people
like,
in general.
If they did it, I'd be like, oh okay. Cool. It'd be cool if it worked out. He's the Reds' only Cy Young winner in franchise history, which is wild. But I don't think that moves the needle. No one, you get Trevor, or you get Trevor Bauer. No one's saying, and the Reds, all right, here we go. You get Rosario, now you go get Trevor Bauer. Look out Cubs, look out Cardinals, look out Giants, look out every team ahead of them. I don't think that matters.
I think if anyone expects Trevor Bauer to come in and be a 1-2 or a 3, you'd be greatly
You don't think he
let
can still
down.
pitch?
I think he could maybe be a 4 or 5.
I think he could pitch. I just don't know why you'd want him. He's going to come up here. If he did sign, he'd sign a 1-year deal. And that one deal, if he pitched well, he'd leave and go to the highest bidder.
We've seen that movie before.
and if he pitched bad, it's on the Reds. You signed a guy that we all knew would. I think it's a lose-lose. You sign a guy that we all thought couldn't pitch in the major league level at this very moment because he's pitching down in what country is he in? Japan?
Mexico, I believe.
Mexico. So yeah, I don't want the story. I don't want the noise outside of my team. If the Reds were 50 games above 500, sure, why not? The Reds are losing, and to be quite honest, I don't need to hear anybody else just criticize the Reds nonstop forever because you went out and signed Trevor Bauer. So I don't want Trevor Bauer. I don't want any association with Trevor Bauer. Let him go to the A's when they go to Sacramento, so the A's can have their little story when they play in front of 4,000 people every night.
I'll agree with Mark Fetters that Bauer would be better than Carson Spires.
True.
Evan Maurer.
If you could get him for a league minimum contract, maybe.
Oh, that's, to be fair, that's what it will be. I don't think any team. I mean, I don't think he has leverage at all to get anything.
There's
But
not gonna be a bidding war.
Yeah, I don't think there's not a team out there that is going to offer him anything other than the league minimum. And it's one of those where if you do sign him and he pitches great. You got a great value. But if not, you're not out anything as far as that's concerned. Evan Maurer, he's upset in the chat about going back to the David Bell thing. He said
he never got off the David Bell.
Yeah, Evan's been on the David Bell thing
to
for
suggest
a while.
that he's going back for it would mean that he talked about anything else at any other point in time.
Oh, so this has been an ongoing thing? My bad.
For days.
I only got annoyed with Bell over the weekend just because he didn't do anything wrong technically, but just hearing his voice in the same mundane tone, it's like I'm tired of hearing about, we've been in this situation before. And I put in the tweet, I don't know what he's supposed to say. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing the same thing every single time. It is what it is. You're right. I put the money on him being the manager opening day 2025. No doubt about it. Like, unless they have repeat performances like this past weekend, I think if there's many more performances like this past weekend, guys, I think he's gone. But outside of that, I mean, I don't think the front office is saying you have a playoff team. If you don't get them there, you failed. You're out of here, as far as that's concerned. But
I agree with you. If there's a stretch similar to this at home, where they're just uncompetitive after uncompetitive, night in, night out, then he will not be the manager of the Reds. But again, this series against the Royals has been a one-time thing. To be fair,
it's the worst one all year.
Yeah, I haven't seen them roll over and quit like they did this past weekend. I think the players like David Bell. I don't think we live in the age where we want our managers screaming at players anymore. I don't think that's what players want. I just don't think so. I could be wrong on that, and I'm willing to put my hand up. My biggest thing, though, is David Bell has nothing to back him up in terms of why you should be manager. Why should you be manager, David Bell? And I can point to your record. It's been terrible. I can point to what have you done in the playoffs? Nothing. Terrible. And that's where I can see the other side. But do I think firing David Bell one bit changes the tone and direction of this season? No, I do not.
Well, no. So with that, and I agree with you because we've been on the same side on that pretty much since we started doing the show together. But the flip side is, well, the blame has to go somewhere, and it's always going to go towards up top. But at what point do we look at the players? That's why I opened up the show doing what I did today. At what point? And again, not blaming Ellie on anything, but like it's okay to look at the series and say, Ellie, what the F? What was that? Like Spencer Steer, Friedel, who's been fantastic this year. That was embarrassing over the weekend. And I do think it's fair to say that, okay, we could talk about the pieces that this team is missing. That's why I put even more expectations on the pieces that they have. Like, if this team is losing, it better be because, man, you're getting great performances from Friedel and Ellie and Steer and Stevenson in India, but they just don't have enough depth to help lift them. Right? Okay, cool. I don't blame them. It's just unfortunate. But that wasn't a lack of depth over the weekend. That wasn't a lack of health over the weekend. That was just star players at a pivotal time of the season not stepping up. That's my problem, I guess. And whether David Bell or Dusty Baker or Bruce Bochy or whoever, whoever's the manager, we could talk manager all we want, but at some point you got to look at the players and say, hey, if you played great all weekend long, but David Bell made bad pitching changes, or David Bell made bad, switches or whatever, defensive switches, whatever. Fine, put that on him. But that's not what happened over the weekend. What happened over the weekend is
Friday night.
Friday, yeah, But overall, star players for an entire 3-day stretch after an off day, after sweeping the Cardinals, after getting everyone bought back in, they just didn't show up. And that's the problem I have. And I've always said, too, you talk about that manager, that coach, that get in your face, scream type of guy. If you're a professional athlete and you need someone to yell at you to do your job, you're not very good at your job. And I agree. I don't think athletes need that. I think it's a motivational factor. I think some of the best coaches and managers in the history of sports have been that way, and it's worked. But I also don't think that it's wild to me. I don't need my boss to come yell at me to do my job, so I just can't relate to those who need that, I guess.
Let me ask you this. Do we think if Bruce Bochy was the manager of the Reds, he'd fix all the stupid mistakes they make? Like, and even if he did, how would you go about it? Do you bench guys? We're benching Ellie because of those 2 errors he had in Saturday in a 13-0 game? Are we benching him because of that? He's the best player we have. Are we benching TJ Friedel? Are we benching Stuart Fairchild? Who are we benching? Because they're not doing their jobs. Because a lot of them haven't done their jobs defensively.
You can't bench the whole lineup
Correct.
on a 3-day stretch, because that was bad.
Otherwise, we're bringing up Jacob Hurtubise. We're bringing up Levi Jordan.
I don't want to bench star players for having a bad game.
Correct.
Maybe I'm okay with losing. Maybe I just love losing.
Oh, and I'm not when I talk about those players, I just sometimes think that we can't even criticize. If you criticize a coach, it's who are you going to replace him with? I don't want him fired. I'm criticizing a coach.
Yeah.
Player plays bad. Man, that quarterback, 3 interceptions in the game, that is unacceptable. Oh, so who are you going to replace him with? Nobody. We're just saying it's unacceptable. It's a bad game. That's what I'm doing here with this lineup over the weekend. And it's not just the lineup, it's everybody. The Reds were organizationally embarrassing over the weekend. There is not one tiny positive thing that you could take away from the weekend, outside of the fact that, well, baseball didn't just take the team away from them. That's the only positive thing you could take from over the weekend. I could say, Ellie, that was not a good performance over the weekend as a star player, as an MVP candidate. You should be setting the tone for this team, especially at this point of the season. Okay, and he's been great all year. I could say that, and that's an isolated criticism. It's not a criticism of Ellie as a whole. And those who get their feelings hurt about that, that's a you problem, not a me problem. Just throwing that out there. So
No, and I think fans should be doing that. I think fans should be criticizing star players. That's part of being a fan of a sport. You have to be able to talk about both sides of it. I don't necessarily think I want my manager out there after a game talking about, oh, this guy stinks and he's not going to be in the lineup tomorrow.
I'm benching him.
Yeah, like I don't want that kind of messaging out of an organization. I think that's a sign of a pretty bad organization.
But we have to keep talking about it until he's fired. So
yeah, I mean, there's
the
a lot
Reds
of-
won 4 in a row. Didn't mention David Bell once. Reds lose 3 in a row in humiliating fashion. Every single game is on David Bell.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to say that's fair, that's up to you. But I'm looking at that and I say that's crap.
And by the way, like I see people even with wrenches by their name saying that they're tired of us doing all the David Bell talk. We're responding to everyone. It's everyone else that wants to talk about the David Bell stuff. We're just throwing that out there. Like I didn't have David Bell on the rundown for today, but again, everyone's wanting to blame David Bell for this, and we're here to say, although we may not think he's manager of the year, you look at that over the weekend, what all is on David Bell? Like, at some point, you got to criticize everyone from the top down. So, is what it is. I have nothing else. If you guys have anything to close this out?
Nope.
Wish I could have said a few less words today. It's the only thing. Maybe talk too much. I'll work on that for tomorrow, though.
The worst thing you could do as a sports talk show host is talk.
That's right.
What is wrong with you,
No,
Elliot?
the fun thing people in the chat don't know is the 2 hours actually fill themselves.
Correct.
We don't have to do any work.
Correct.
Yeah. In fact,